Vice Chair Eisen.
Here.
Commissioner Black.
Here.
Commissioner Eisen.
Here.
You have a quorum.
So Chair Stamper, the first item is the approval of the minutes from the March 2nd meeting. You're muted.
You're muted, Hillary.
This is where I say, we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes. Okay, I'll have a motion, put out a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And then can we have a vote? I vote aye, I approve. All in favor of approving?
Yes. Approved.
Yes.
Okay, that was just everyone.
Great.
Yes.
Any announcements or correspondence from the commission? We don't have any correspondence. Oh, actually we do. At our last meeting, Commissioner Eisen requested that a letter be drafted thanking the state parks for their work on their portions of the coastal trail that had been recently completed. And her and Chair Stamper put together some talking points, and then our communications director, Jessica Blair, put together a letter. And the customary approach is that it's actually signed by the mayor and comes from the mayor, but it was on behalf of the commission, and that went out last week. So there is that piece of correspondence.
Yeah, that was great. And Jessica did a good job on that. That was really good.
Yeah, she turned it around very quickly. So we were really happy with that.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have members of the public attending. We need to see if there's any public comments on any items that are not on the agenda.
If you are in the attendees section, you have a public comment, just click the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. And we'll go ahead and move to you. Okay, doesn't look like we have any public comments.
Great. First staff informational report is city council updates. I'll make that update. We've had 2 official meetings as well as a couple other meetings since our last meeting of the commission. The first was our city council meeting on March 15th. And on that, the items that I think are relevant to this commission include an update on the Coastside Recovery Initiative, which is something that has been in the works for a little over a year. The city convened a task force over the entire coastside with partnership of the county and the Coastside Chamber. And that task force worked over a 9-month period or so and put together 15 recommendations to help the coastside economy and the community recover from the impacts of COVID and work towards a new and better economy and more resilient economy on the coast. And the update last week was just that report had been completed and has been published. It's a beautiful booklet. If you're interested in a hard copy, let me know and we'll get one to you. Otherwise, we can send you a link and you can see it on our website. It's by no means a roadmap for the city to do everything and to fix everything. It truly is a document for the entire community to look at and think about, and for everybody to have a piece of. There's a lot of different initiatives already moving forward, and some of them are being led by the city, some are being led by the county, others by community members or the school board. And we hope to see it implemented over the next several years and hopefully lead to a stronger economy here on the coast. Another item from the 15th is that the City Council approved an agreement with Bartera Winery and Fattoria Emari at the north end of Main Street, near the Main Street Bridge, for a permanent parklet. So parklets are, there's Commissioner Haro, I see him joining. Hey, Luis.
Yeah.
during COVID, the city was able to pilot something that's been happening in other cities, and all cities had to take this on during COVID, and that is the use of public parking spaces for outdoor dining. There was a lot of concerns in the community about doing it, and I think it was successful on a kind of a pilot basis during COVID, and our community development department has been working on a more blanket approach to keeping them long-term. And while that's happening, one of the temporary structures, which was done again, at the north end of Main Street, they applied to do something more permanent. And so we put together an agreement that they've signed on to. And what it'll allow them to do is to eliminate the big orange K-rail, plastic guards and do something much nicer, more elegant. It'll still have to be done in a way that protects the diners from passing traffic. But we expect it to really be a nice addition to that end of Main Street. And we hope to see a few more of them pop up and down Main Street. There will be limits on how many per block and how many spaces they can take up. But we think it's going to be a nice addition to our downtown.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Maybe you should do it almost like as a lottery. Maybe it should be something that is so coveted. Only a few people are going to get these special spaces that, create an atmosphere downtown and bring in business, but only a few are going to be able to get it. I mean, you might want to
create a little artificial demand.
It's not so artificial. It should be, because the cities that have gone ahead and continued on a more permanent basis, some of the clever ideas they came up with during the pandemic so that they could survive have added so much life and interest into all these different main streets that I've been to. I was in Danville last week. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of things that they created for outdoor by their restaurants, and it just makes such a difference. And of course, it's still going on. So, it's a terrific thing.
We're very excited about the new general acceptance of this concept, and we hope to see more. Yeah. Another item on the 15th was the big item, of course, was the redistricting process, and the council did adopt a map. If you're interested in seeing that, you can go to our website and see the map that was adopted, and that's what will be incorporated into the election this coming November. And then really interesting presentation that isn't directly related to this commission, but I think could be. Council member Jimenez invited a woman that is working on regenerative farming, which is an approach to sustainable farming that helps to better use soil and rotate things through the soil to sequester carbon, and it's to lessen the impact of farming on the environment. And it was really actually a very interesting presentation. It was unfortunate it came very late at night, but actually a lot of people stayed on and were quite energized by it. A lot of it can be learned about through a documentary film called Kiss the Ground. It was shown in the city a few times a couple of years ago, and I think it's something we'll bring back and might be something that we do through our recreation department. So we'll keep you posted. Again, no direct connection to rec, but as we talk about Earth Day and other things that we want to work on, there could certainly be some connections there. So I'd encourage you to look up that documentary, and we'll let you know if we're able to show it at a city facility in the future. Besides that council meeting, of course, we've been in the thick of the council's prioritization process for this upcoming budget. And so over the last several weeks, there were 2 listening sessions, a community survey, and feedback gathered. And then yesterday, they held their actual priority setting session. They deliberated for about 3 hours, and we'll be coming back as staff with a work plan, but just for your information purposes, the items that really rose to the top, housing, we took on at a previous meeting, and it of course has a lot of work that's happening. Of the other existing priorities, emergency preparation was a big topic yesterday, and we'll be looking at doing some things to enhance our emergency preparation efforts. And then economic development and recovery, continuing the recovery initiative and moving forward with some of those recommendations. And then the other 2 items that really rose to the top that were not on our current priorities There's a new group that we're titling Transportation, Circulation, and Mobility. And it kind of stemmed from thoughts about traffic and how do we improve traffic on the coast, but it really expanded to our trails. And of course, this commission has talked a lot about looking at the coastal trail and improving it and being more strategic with our other sections of the coastal trail that are owned by other agencies. And that really rose to the top. So I'm sure you'll be seeing some work on that in the work plan for next year. And then just direction to start exploring annexation of a couple of different areas that of unincorporated county that surround the city. It's by no means a decision to actually do annexations, but to look at the pros and cons and for both city residents and the people that are living in those areas. So that includes the remainder of Miramar that is not within the city limits, Moonridge, and actually heading up 92, some of the commercial properties up there. And some of that might give us a better position to control some of the traffic issues and create some solutions there. So we'll see where that goes. There was talk of the pool because there's been a lot of public comment on it. And the council generally expressed support for a community pool, as many of us do, but did not give any direction at this time to pursue it as a priority. I think given the context around it, that some things need to happen before it can really become a real project, identifying a site and identifying some funding for both construction and operation. So I know at least some of you were there yesterday. If there's anything you heard that maybe I missed there, be interested to hear from that now.
Well, as far as the annexation thing is, I mean, that is being driven basically by two city council members, and there wasn't a single person that came to the listening that I saw that had that as any kind of priority. So it was really, setting priorities is an interesting thing, people's personal agendas versus what the people in the city want to see. But I just, the farming thing is interesting. Do we actually have like a city staff liaison with the farmers? We don't, because that is an interesting thing that, that is worth absolutely exploring in terms of even from the recreation, all the places that are doing well in small farms are farm to table. We have not here we are on this beautiful coast, and we really have not taken advantage of that idea. Nobody's really doing it. This is the kind of thing I think that, like if we get maybe somebody to come in and address the farmers as to how they can increase revenue in terms of what they're growing, how they're doing it, what to do when you're in a tourist town area and you have a component, so I think that's definitely because, yes, I don't think any of us really want to see the farmland go.
Right.
But if you can't grow sustainable crops and make a go of it, I've been in too many communities where the land gets sold and developed.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an important thing for the city to put some focus on that.
And there was a whole segment of the recovery initiative and several recommendations similar to what you just described. So check out the report and you'll see some of that. And of course, a lot of the farming itself happens outside of the city limits.
Right.
But your point of its connection to tourism and our economy is very important. And so I think there's going to be a lot of collaboration around this with the county and the ag commissioner and some of the other agencies here on the coast.
Yeah, okay, good.
The only other item I have around city council meetings is I want to make sure this is on your radar because it's come up in previous conversations. On April 5th, which is our next city council meeting, there will actually be a presentation from somebody who has some expertise around a tram. And so I know that's something we've talked about and is of interest, and we'll actually have an informational presentation on it, and the council will be able to deliberate on it a little bit. So hopefully you can join it and maybe add some of your thoughts and comments to that as well. I know that it's being proposed or discussed around traffic, but as was mentioned here, there could be some recreation and tourism components to it as well. So that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
recreation updates. Sorry, Chair Stamper, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. Recreation updates. Let's go.
Here we go. So I just have a few updates for you tonight, all regarding special events. I know a lot of our beloved special events we haven't seen those for a few years, and now we're coming into the spring, summertime. We're able to do some of the events that we've done historically in the community. So upcoming this April 9th, we will be again partnering with the Boys and Girls Club of the Coast Side to host a free Easter egg hunt at Cunha Middle School soccer fields. I know some of our commissioners have been there in the past with their families, and if you've been there, you know how just cherished it is by the community and how much people love it. Over 1,000 people show up each year for about 8 minutes of fun and chaos. So we're really excited to be able to do that again. The city's part in that event is we provide staff support the day of the event. We also help to purchase some of the supplies needed for that event. So it's a really awesome partnership. And what we've done in the past is we've reached out to a few commissioners that are available that day that would be interested in showing up. And the city, we also give away some prizes for some of the kids there at the event. And in the past, we've had our commissioners show up if they're available to help hand those out and just be, a good presence there at the event. So I'll reach out to the commissioners offline and see if anyone's available on the 9th to do that. But it's a really fun event, and I strongly encourage you to come out and check it out. Also, our concerts in the park. For some of you who may not be super familiar with that concert series, what we do is in August, each Saturday in August, we bring in a new band to Mac Dutra Plaza to play music for the community and the visitors of the city for 2 hours from 4 to 6. And we also have several nonprofits that come out to these events. And we have 2 standing nonprofits that come to each one of those. That's the Half Moon Bay Library and the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation. We love having them there. The Friends, they use this as an opportunity to conduct some outreach, try to generate some interest in becoming members to the club. And the library always comes with some great activities. They give away free books. It's always a great time. And each one of those Saturdays, we pick a third nonprofit for each one to come and give them that opportunity as well. And so we've invited and been confirmed with Coast Pride, Sea Hugger, Mid-Penn Open Space, and a Lost. Those will be our for our third spot for each one of those concerts in the park. So definitely going to be fun this year. We're looking forward to it. And kind of a new addition to the event, I'm sure everyone knows, we don't have access to Carter Park this summer for great reason. But the Shakespeare Company from Half Moon Bay, they every year hold a few weeks long event there where they put on performances, and they don't have the opportunity to use that site this year. So they approached us and asked us if we would include them in our concerts in the park in August. And so, of course, we said, no problem, come on down. So they'll be at the end of the concert each Saturday at 6 o'clock. They'll move in and they'll perform for that kind of built-in audience that's already there for the concert. So we're all really excited about it. They're excited to have the opportunity. We're excited to have the show keep going. So should be a great time this summer in August. Speaking of August, it's not too often that we have new special events, and we love special events. We love new special events. We were approached a few months ago by the Northern California Amateur Skateboarding League, and this is a group that's been wanting to host some sort of an event here at our skate park, and I've been in conversations with them, and we've agreed to partner with them in a amateur skateboard contest in August. So it's a great time for rec. We finally get to put a spotlight on the park and use it for recreation purposes. And it's a free event. It's in 4 different competition groups with 3 different competing categories. Matthew's resident skateboard pro, so he probably knows what these mean, but we'll have 3 categories. We have the vert bowl category, and Matthew, you can elaborate on that. We have the park mini ramp category and the street category. And we've been putting out flyers for the last week and a half, and we cannot print them fast enough. These kids keep coming in to get these flyers. So they're really excited. It's a free thing. And the cool part about this event is that these kids, when they compete, they earn points. And if they get enough points, that makes them eligible for the national championship. So our skateboarders here are going to be coming up on some fun opportunities here this summer through this program. And hopefully it goes well and we can continue that in the future. But we're excited to finally be able to do some recreation officially in the skate park. And speaking of access to Carter Park, we want to do Summer's End this year, finally. It's been 2 long years of boring Septembers, but this year we're going to bring Summer's End back, and we're going to host it Main Street. So our idea is this year we're going to close off Main Street from Kelly to Miramontes and basically place the whole event right there in September 24th. So we're starting to plan up for that, and we're super excited. And, I know the commissioners that have been there before hopefully had a good time and are looking forward to it this year. Any questions?
I just have one comment. You described the skateboard contest. I just wanted to point out that also beach volleyball contests or tournaments are starting up, like in Northern California and definitely in Southern California, like tons of them every weekend in Southern California. And the sooner that we can get our courts up, the easier it will be for people to practice beach volleyball all over the community. And potentially we have more options then to expand the number of people who host beach volleyball tournaments and bring folks over to Half Moon Bay to do that. So, and it would be similar, like the points, everything is the same kind of idea as the skateboard contest. And I think it was a great opportunity for us to work more on that. And I know this city is short-staffed and having trouble like getting the final permits for the stuff on Kelly and Poplar Beach, but if this, as soon as the water's ready, if we have stuff up, it'll be much easier to really start doing stuff with that.
Eddie, I have a few questions. Great, all good news. Love what you're presenting. Everything really good. Have you selected the bands yet for the concerts in August?
We have. So quickly, the bands for Summer's End, those were already booked and contracted last year, but in the last, weeks before the event, we had to cancel. We kind of followed the lead of the Pumpkin Fest, so we did make the move to cancel. So that's basically like copy and paste. They've been offered those same, spots for this year. For the concert in the park, we have a really long list of bands and musicians, performers that have reached out to us interested in performing. And, I'll be honest, when I first started here and took over Concert in the Park, I wasn't uber focused on making it being like focused on diversity and what we're offering. And then it definitely took Paulette and other commissioners to say, hey, we need to be focused on how we're selecting these bands. And so that's what we've done ever since then. We try to be diverse, both culturally, ethnically, and also in regards to gender, and making sure that we have a nice broad spectrum of performers. So
Good. I'm glad you're taking all of that into consideration because it's really important. We need to reflect back to the audience that the musicians reflect back the community that they are performing to, so that you have an audience that can relate well to the musicians and vice versa. So that's really good. But I'm just going to throw in another band that that you should be write it down, because I just went to Port of Redwood City this past Sunday and watched the band called Pure Ecstasy. And so they are a local Bay Area band. They're very good, mostly like kind of rhythm and blues, but they got everybody up dancing. Everyone was dancing at this thing. The energy was really good. They're all good musicians and really good vocalists. So, and a nice mixed group, again, a mixed group of people, age-wise, ethnic-wise, everything. So it's a good one, pure ecstasy.
I've got it written down. And Paulette, actually, one band that's at Summer's End this year, we booked based on your recommendation. I don't remember where you saw them at. They're called Touch of Class. And they were at some kind of event you saw in the East Bay, and we checked them out and liked them. And it's perfect, it's definitely a diverse band. Yeah, music kind of all over the place. And so based on your recommendation, they will be at Summer's End this year, and we'll make sure to get you autographs. Okay, great. Now, Summer's End, are you planning to have one stage or two? Because I'm thinking that might be an interesting idea, is to have on one end a stage and the other end maybe a smaller stage, but something that people could be watching while the next band sets up at stage one, that people go over to stage two. There's either a magician or something, especially for kids, or something like that would be really good. And then people go, so it can just make the flow a lot better by thinking about that. Absolutely, and you are the second person to say that. Matthew Chuster was the first. Excellent. So the idea initially was we would have the stage, basically the stage would be staged in front of City Hall, facing north. East? North, okay. But Matthew, I walked him through this idea, and he said, you know what? We should stage the stage. I'll do it again. At the end of Main Street. That way, when people come into Main Street, they see this stage and all the things leading up to them. And no brainer is a great idea. And then he said, what if this back end of the section is the kids area that flows into MacDutra? And then we book Andy Z, who is the guy who does the kids thing. Yeah. So we talked to him today, and he's in. He's going to do, it's a 7-hour event. He's going to do 3 hour and 15-minute sets. So we're just going to have a family kid area with music going on. Yeah. And yeah, so that's the plan. And as we get closer, I'll walk you all through the plans and get your input and feedback. But you and Matthew are priceless. You guys are awesome. Okay, yeah, there you go. So one other thing, because that would be happening in September, Summer's End, right? Are we having an additional September event for the Mexican independence thing? Is that going to happen?
We haven't talked with Alas about it yet, but we were planning it with them last year, and then they canceled it because of the COVID resurgence. So I expect that we'll be planning it with them. And the idea there is actually what was going to happen last year was kind of a street fair in front of their offices on Parisma Street, and then a farm worker parade, which is a really cool idea. Oh, that is a cool idea. Farm workers, they're not always in the limelight, but you think of the work they did during the pandemic and the work they do every day, and it was a chance to honor them. So hopefully that's something we'll make happen this year. And that'll happen a couple weeks before Summer's End. And then there will be Summer's End and then the Pumpkin Festival. It's going to be a busy summer in fall. Perfect. Yeah, excellent. Yay.
I like that.
Good stuff.
One question. Is there a difficulty in putting all of these events that you're putting together, Eddie, and like listening sessions, for example, on the Half Moon Bay calendar that's on the city's website? Is that a heavy lift? Because it might be nice to have everything available to see.
The meetings are generally on the calendar. I don't know if we put events there before. We try to use like the chamber calendar for events. And people aren't usually looking at the city calendar for that, but it's not a big lift. So we could probably do that if you think people are actually going to the calendar on the website for events.
I mean, I have no idea if where people go to find out about events, but I was just thinking for this commission as a resource, it would be nice to be able to visually see all the events that are coming up over time, because it would be then easier to like remind oneself, oh, this thing is coming, be ready. Or
yeah, I think I like that. I think that's a great idea. Plus, I think that if we again put out communication to at least the people who are signed up for alerts, that they're all notified that there is a thing called an events calendar, where you can go and see what the city is putting on, what events are scheduled. I think that would be really, really good, and might get you more people wanting to be signed up to the city, to the city alerts, and so that they, are just more in the loop.
Definitely.
yeah, it would be nice to not lose sight of those.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hillary, for that.
Yeah. So next, do we just go on to our regular agenda, or does anyone else have any more questions about recreation updates?
So I got something I want to say real quick. Just on the upcoming events, would we be able to get those posted on Cunha's? How Cunha Elementary or middle school has the electronic billboard out front by their gym.
Yeah.
Do you think we'd be able to post some of the upcoming events that are, coming up in the future on there as well, or no?
We can ask. I don't know if we've ever asked, but we have a good relationship now with the school district, so we'll definitely ask them that. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect. So that way the community, when they're driving by or walking by, they see what's coming in the town. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Great. Special skateboard, concerts for kids, all the stuff. Everything we just talked about. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Love it. Thank you.
Good idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then we have our first regular agenda item, which is update from Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec.
Hi, everybody. Just real quick, because I know you have a totally packed agenda and I don't have tons of updates. It was more I wanted to be here because I want to hear all about Smithfield. But we are actively looking for board members. So if you guys know any brilliant, fabulous new people to join the Friends board, we'd love to share that info with me. We are prepping and getting ready for Coastside Gives. I know I talked last time about the internship idea, and Matthew and Eddie and I met today and just started talking about the idea. So we're still exploring and discussing ideas and options with that. And we are brainstorming a lot of new fundraising ideas. We're getting kind of excited. We've got some fun new things we're thinking about. Obviously, there'd be a lot to negotiate and figure out, but we had a great discussion and brainstorming last night in the development committee and then today. And then, of course, we're still talking about the pool. So those are kind of the quick updates from us on what's going on. And I'm sure I'll have more next month.
Any questions? Okay.
No questions.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Maria. All right. So next is our Johnson House Foundation presentation.
Thank you, Chair Stamper. And I'll just do a quick intro and then we'll turn the time over to the Johnson House Foundation. Many people know what the Johnson House is. For those that don't, it's the beautiful white salt box house on the south end of town, on the hillside east of the entrance to Main Street off of Highway 1. It's a historic structure that is really a symbol of the coast. A lot of people don't know it, but the city actually owns that property, and it's run and operated by a foundation called the Johnson House Foundation, and they have a long and really great history there. And one of the things that's never happened is we've never had kind of an official agreement or MOU to govern or regulate, who does what and how things work. And so it's something we worked on pre-COVID and we're making good progress on. And then when COVID hit, it just kind of went by the wayside. And just in the last couple of maybe month and a half, we've been able to re-engage with the group and we're making good progress. working on an MOU. But of course, this commission is an important source of feedback and thoughts as we move forward with that. And so we see tonight as a first step, and we'll do some follow-up work and probably bring them back for another discussion. But what we thought tonight is to have them just give a background on the history of the Johnston House, on the history of the foundation and the work that they've done, the work they're doing now, and kind of where they see the future. And a chance for you all to share some thoughts. We do want to keep it limited tonight because the Smithfield item after this is going to be a big item and it's the main focus of the meeting, but we're hoping tonight get your thoughts going and get your juices flowing around Johnston House, and then it's something we'll bring back at future meetings to talk more about before we finalize the MOU. So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to John Ryan. He's the president of the Johnston House Foundation Board and someone we've been working with for a long time and a long time co-sider. And we're just appreciative that he's joining us tonight to share a little bit about the foundation. Mr. Ryan.
Excuse me, before John, if you don't mind, before I hand it, I just want to be clear. Matthew, you said the house belongs to the city. The city owns
the whole property, including the house, is the city.
And what do you mean by the property? How much property is involved? Because you know, there's the farmland, which is different than the yeah.
The city, and at a future meeting, I can bring a map and actually show you, but
Okay.
The city owns, I don't know what it is, maybe 6 or 7 acres out there. It includes the Johnston House up on the hill, some of the land below it, and then the train depot and the restrooms and the parking lot off of Higgins Canyon Road. The farmland in front of it is owned by Post, but leased to a farmer. And the property above it is owned by there's a combination of things happening, but I think it's a combination of Post in the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. And we're working with them on some plans to create some trails and opportunities for hiking and recreation out there.
Okay, yeah, a map would be helpful.
Great. The next time we talk about this item, I'll bring a map for sure.
Okay. Sorry, John. Please
no worries. No worries. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. James Johnston, who the house is named for, he was quite a character. He was born in Scotland in 1813, was raised in Gallipolis, Ohio, and then he went into the Army at age 20, fought in a Indian War in Florida, helped map the Rocky Mountains, and then fought in one of the various skirmishes along the Mexican border in the 1840s. And then the gold rush happened. He ended up in California, spent some time in the gold fields, but he realized, as a number of other people did, that the real money was to be made in San Francisco, taking care of the miners. And so he did quite well at that, had a wonderful idea that California needed cattle or dairy cows, excuse me. And so he met with Candelario Miramontes, who had the Don title from the Spanish government at that time and covered most of Half Moon Bay. And he bought 1,800 acres from Don Miramontes, which is covered from about Higgins Canyon Road, where the Johnston House is, south about a half a mile. And he decided he wanted to bring dairy cattle out from Ohio, had his brothers bring 800 head of cattle out in 1853. And while he was getting ready to build a house there, he decided that maybe it'd be a good idea to look for a wife. And he found a beautiful local woman, California, which was what the Mexicans were called prior to before California taking full control of the state from the Mexican government. She was a Californio, and her name was Petra de Jara. They were married, and he realized, I need to give my wife a good wedding present, so I'm going to build her a house. And that's where the Johnston House came from. And they wanted to use, the only product around that they could get was redwood to do the building. So they had lumber or logs brought up all the ways from Santa Cruz on tall ships. And this is one of the stories I love. They would go approximately the end of Kelly and push the logs off at low tide and go out there and try and bring them in to have oxen teams carry the logs up to the house. They said on a good day that they would get 7 out of 10 logs, and the other 3 went to probably China or Hawaii. But they did it took about 2 years to build the house. It was all done in that day. They didn't have nails, and they did mortise and tenon work. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's very time consuming. James and Petra had 4 children, and in 1861, Petra passed away during childbirth. She's buried at the Catholic Cemetery at Main Street and Highway 92. And Petra's mother, Melita, took over the kids and managing them and managing the household and everything for about 10 years. And then the children had grown up, the 3 boys and 1 girl, and things started to spread out. James was in his mid 60s in 1879. He passed away. He's buried at the Protestant cemetery down at the end. And over about the next 30 years, they were trying to keep family members in the house. His brother John built a farm across Higgins Canyon. The building looks very similar to the Johnson House. It's still there today. Going forward into around 1900, the house was abandoned, and a number of people owned it over the years. In the 1960s, if you can see the building, the picture over my right shoulder, that is what the Johnson House looked like in the 1860s or 1960s, pardon me. A couple who were curators for the Smithsonian Institute, Joan and Malcolm Watkins, were traveling up from Monterey, and they saw the building. And the thing that was of significance to them, without any of the cultural history involved, is if you look at the roof line there, or you might look at it on the document that Eddie put together, it's called the New England salt box shape. And that was a form that was a housing structure that was big in England in the 1800s, carried over from Europe to New England. And when you would buy salt back in the 1800s, you'd get a 5-pound box that was shaped just like the roof line of that house, hence the name, the New England salt box. The Watkins thought that they'd never seen a building like that west of the Mississippi. Malcolm wrote a long treatise there that I believe Eddie gave you copies of, that talks about the significance, the history, everything else, not to mention the bringing together the cultures of the California Hispanics and the Anglos here on the coast, and bringing in dairy cattle, which lasted for about 20 years till people realized the California golden bear on the flag would always win. So the house stayed idle for a number of years. And then after the Watkins got involved, they started to write some work about the property itself and did a lot of research. And in the process, some locals here, Terry Pimsler, Alana Zupan, both rest in peace, they formed the Johnson House Foundation because they felt it was a worthwhile project to go ahead and try and attempt to rebuild it. And it was one heck of a project. The foundation was formed 50 years ago this month, actually. And for the first 30 years, to about 2000, the Johnson House Foundation spent about $730,000 of begged, borrowed donations, things like that, to rebuild the building to what it is today. Then we were able to open the building in 2001. It was far enough along to let tours and other events happen there. And we're about 95% done with the completion of everything to make it perfect. On our wish list, there used to be a building behind the house. It was a cook's house, because back in the day, you didn't have a fire in your kitchen for fear you burn your house down. So they had the cook's house back there. We have been planning to do a interpretive center and reduplicate that building. We hope to do that within about the next 5 years. It's just a matter of funding and grant applications and the such. So like I say, we've got hundreds of thousands of volunteer hours. I'm a weekend wood butcher, and I've done a lot of work up there, and I have volunteers that help me all the time. But a lot of the work, most of the work is voluntarily done. That's really all I have to add. If you have questions.
John, would you mind just sharing kind of the types of public access that have been offered in the past and what is currently being offered?
Yeah, we're open 10 months out of the year, January to October, the third Saturday of each week for public tours, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Also, we do a lot of private tours where people either go to our website or call us up and want to come out. And excuse me. So we probably, other exclusive of any events that we might have, we probably get 700, 800, 900 people a year that tour the house.
Okay, I have, oh, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, you work with the school district, correct?
Yes. We had an event a couple of years ago, before the COVID, obviously, where we did a Civil War reenactment as a fundraising adventure. And we worked with Cunha Intermediate to have the soldiers, who apparently a number of them have teaching certificates. They worked and put on a history example for the kids from the school. And from what I understand, it's well received all around.
Okay, well, first, John, I want to commend you and the other members of the foundation for caring, because that's what it comes down to. Caring enough to want to preserve this. And, because I'm not a big fan of tearing everything down and losing historical, architecture and stories and context, so.
I understand.
Yeah, so I think that's wonderful. Have you yourself or people in the foundation visited or talked to other foundations that also do something similar?
Oh yeah, I'm not, one of my fellow board members is on the board of the Bay Area Historical Museum Commission. All right, I probably blew that name, but that's basically, and they meet every month. And so they share a lot of information from everything from interpretive exhibits for the schools down to, fundraising, all types of things.
Right, because fundraising is obviously a key component here.
Yeah.
In order to keep this thing going. Yeah,
well, we've been financially responsible for all the maintenance on the house since day one, and we have, we've taken that very, very seriously. I mean, there are people that know. So we have an advisory committee that is made up of people that know much more about the historical building codes and other things. And it's been a wonderful learning experience for me. But I mean, it's funny you'd said, Paulette, about tearing things down. I grew up in Redwood City. I'm in my 60s, and when I was a kid, we would come over on a weekend for a trip to Martins Beach. And I remember driving by that when it looked like that house you see over my right shoulder. And I thought it was a haunted house. And then fast forward about 40 years, I'm moving over here in the year 2000, and I'm sitting looking for, waiting to meet with a leasing agent for some office space. And I end up at the end of Main Street in front of the firehouse, and I look up, and I hadn't been here in 35 years. And I was like, son of a gun, that can't be the same building. And it's just been a wonderful experience getting to know the people that were responsible for, I mean, this was a heck of a battle. The Johnston House Foundation was responsible. That city was originally went back because of failure of property tax payments. It rolled back to the county in the 1960s. And I mentioned Terry Pimsler and Alana Zappan. They worked with the city to convince them that it was an asset to have. If you get us the land, we'll fix the damn thing, pardon me. And the city jumped on board, and they managed to help work with the city to, I don't know what piece of land the city swapped for that and gave to the county. I've heard everything from the train star, the fire station, to a couple other things, but really doesn't matter. But the Johnston House was responsible for the city getting the property in the first place. And the people that are on my board, I have 8 people on our board presently. 3 of them have been board members for 40 plus years.
Wow.
And so they went through the fights and the battles and the fundraising. And, I'm fortunate enough to, get to stand on their shoulders for what I'm doing.
Right. So, but I look at, for instance, I've been to a number of different places. I'm sure you have too. And I look at a place, especially like I'm a member at Filoli. And, it's an absolutely gorgeous place there, but they have created sort of a whole business, essentially, around Filoli so that they can support keeping that and keeping it beautiful as it is, and which takes obviously a tremendous amount of work, landscapers, especially the house maintenance. I mean, goes on and on. There's a lot of work to keep up, a heritage site like that.
Yeah.
But they have figured out commercial ways that, to support that endeavor. And that's, I guess, what I'm wondering. And in terms of, what's the potential? What can we do with the Johnston House so that we can make it even nicer than it is right now, in terms of the grounds and everything like that? That could be way more enhanced. And make it like a wonderful place for visitors to go to.
Well, it's the history of it is what is the drawing point to the people that we know that come in. I mean, Filoli has their Christmas events. They have a lot of commercial opportunities up there.
They do the concerts. That's another money maker.
We've discussed concerts over the years. We used to have an annual holiday boutique there every November that was a great fundraiser for us.
Right.
We're entertaining different ideas, and we're always looking for new ideas. Right now, our main focus is to get our agreement lined up with the city and get everybody, all on the same page, and then we'll move forward. I mean, fortunately, we are in very good financial shape. And we're able to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of and keep a good chunk of money in the bank. So we're grateful for that. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Well, every piece of information we're getting is helpful to us in terms of having an idea of what's going on. So
yeah, I mean, ideally, what we really want to do is show it for its educational value. I had mentioned the interpretive center that we'd like to build. That would also have what had been on the property originally, a milking barn, and also it'd have a blacksmith shop, and have people up there that are actively working the blacksmith, for example, when they come up for tours. Get these schools to bring busloads of kids up there for our docents. We have wonderful docents that are dressed in period costumes, do a great job doing the tours. That's our main focus, is to educate the story of the two cultures on the coast side in 1853 and what life was like in that period. To me, it's fascinating every time that document that Eddie put together for you. I read that over the weekend just so I'd sound semi-intelligent when I talk to you guys tonight. And it just brings you back to what really it was like 170 years ago. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, I've been to some wonderful, places where they dress in costume. They do all kinds of things,
Yeah.
and it's a great learning experience, a great, like being able to put yourself back into the 1800s, think about how people lived and what they were thinking about and how they went about working and doing things and all of that. But I think there's ways to expand on that. Like I'm thinking of a place that I lived up in British Columbia. I forgot now the name of the place, which really bothers me. But it was also a heritage. But it was also with it, it had a flour. It used to be also a flour mill. And so to this day, they still show how that flour mill works. And you can get there fresh flour. You can get a sourdough starter. They have a tea shop, so you can get some baked goods, from the flour they make. So again, expanding, making more of a thing to have a better draw.
No, we're always open to new ideas.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Good.
I like all the conversation. I learned a lot today. This is good. I appreciate it very much. My goal would be figuring out a way to turn this, like I come from a tourism background.
Okay.
And so when I think about the Johnston House, I think about, similar to what Commissioner Eisen's talking about, but opportunities to get more, utilize that spot more. I look at, and so I guess what I'd love to do is collaborate, sit with you guys at some point and brainstorm. Have you bring your team back in, and during one of these meetings, that I don't know if we can organize that, but when the time is right, and everybody just throw a bunch of ideas up, and you tell us what's viable, what's not, and then have Matthew tell us what we can help with and what we can't, and see if we can kind of get a little more juice out of that place. That's kind of.
I would look forward to that, Commissioner. I would.
Me too.
I mean, it's interesting, if I just throw off for 1 second. When we used to have the holiday boutiques, we ran that up to about 2015, when we kind of ran short of volunteers because it was very labor intensive. But one of my fellow board members and I would take turns parking cars down in the parking lot where the railroad station is. And I would say to people when they come up, "Oh, where are you from? Oh, that's great, da da da. You've been here before." And it amazed me how many people would say, "Oh, I'm from Half Moon Bay. I lived here 40 years. This is the first time I've ever been here." And you just, my jaw would kind of drop after a while, because it's like, it's here. Maybe we haven't done enough outreach to get people involved. That was my conclusion I took off of that. But so.
Well, Jonah, I just want to tell you that I'm one of those people that what got me to go there was the boutique.
Yeah.
That's the first time that I went there, and I thought, "Oh, isn't this lovely? What a lovely, and learning all about it. It was, of course, beautifully decorated and set up for the Christmas. It was lovely. So that's what got me in there. But I'm just letting you know that an event is what actually got me to go there.
No, I understand. We would still be doing that today because that was lucrative for us. But we needed about 300 volunteers to do that for 2 weekends. And people started thinning out very quickly after about the 7th or 8th year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never been able to recapture that. But
Matthew always tells us he gets volunteers. He makes it happen.
Okay, Matt, it's on your shoulders now.
No pressure. One thing I can do is I think we should probably in the next few months organize a tour, have the commissioners come and do a tour.
I would love to. I would love to give you the $5 tour.
Yeah.
Oh, that's steep. I don't know.
Great idea.
Okay, we'll do it for free this time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know. I said, anyway, I don't know, technology. All it has is a blank screen and it says speak. So thank you so much, John. It's really good hearing your voice and talking with your heart about the home, the Johnson House. I see it every day. I love it. And when I moved here 40 years ago, we came to the coast. Being from the Atlantic side and coming to the Pacific, it's real important. And I saw that house sitting up there, and it's still sitting there. And it's so wonderful, the preservation of the area, and just the way I got goosebumps. And then going there I was there at the Christmas boutique, and it's just amazing. It was a wonderful house. I love looking at it. I love architecture. I'm also from the East Coast. And so I'm used to the salt boxes. And it was very odd to see a salt box. It's like, wow. So it's a connection. And, a lot of people say, well, how do you get there? And so at some point, when a map is developed for our city, where are the hot spots? Where should you go? And heading down and going up to the Johnson House is just a wonderful experience. And sometimes I just park at the bottom and walk up and around, and you can just kind of feel the energy the way it was way back when. And I'm just grateful I didn't live there then.
Yeah.
There now, and I'm very grateful that you have such wonderful enthusiasm, and I'm sure people just love to be around you. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing you. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Now, I'd be happy to, kidding aside, I would be happy to take all of you up there on a tour. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Definitely. Yeah.
We'll get that coordinated here in the next month or so.
Okay.
I'm excited to do that.
That's a very good idea. Any ideas that we have or think about, it's so much better to be able to be there and get a much better sense of it.
Sure.
And every time I coordinate a tour, I get to go on it. So
yes,
I've coordinated several tours.
Yes, you have.
All right.
That sounds like a great plan.
Okay. So I think we're wrapping up here and ready to move on to the next item. As I said, staff are working with John and his team on the MOU. That MOU will find its way to you all. And I think between now and then, we'll do the tour, and we'll probably dedicate one of our meetings to a brainstorming session, a discussion. And I think there's some really great stuff that's going to come out of it. So thank you, John, for coming tonight. We really appreciate your great storytelling. It was compelling. And I think anybody who's in this meeting tonight probably learned some things about the coast they never knew. And
they do.
We looking forward to continuing to work with you.
Yeah, same here, Matthew. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you, all of you, for your time and attention.
Yeah, great. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Take care.
Too.
So now on to our big item, Smithfield Master Plan Workshop.
Yay. Well, I'm gonna take over, and I want to go on the tour, by the way. I'm not a commissioner, but it sounds fabulous. So sign me up. Don't forget about me. I'll pay $5. I can afford the $5 tour. But anyway, let's chat about Smithfield. Let me share my screen. Oh, can someone let me share my screen?
So if I could just say, I'm here. Just to thank Melanie and the staff around my shop for helping make this happen for tonight. We were back with you about 3 weeks ago, and we said we would be back. And tonight is, I think, a better opportunity for some of the questions, comments, and thoughts that you started to voice in the last conversations. And I think this will give you in the community a little more understanding in terms of maybe a better look at the constraints side, and then also looking at some of the sort of potentials of the site. Again, this whole project was initiated on the basis of a major donor, potential donor coming forth And so what I do always try to keep in mind and ask that others keep in mind is their objective was to assist us in at minimum working on improving and paving the parking lots and access there, and with hopes to perhaps expand into some of the field play there for Little League. This request is coming through the Little League itself from the donor's perspective. And just keep that in mind. It doesn't mean that that's all we're looking at, but I just want to try to compartmentalize a little bit that and keep track of that. And then our objective was to, if we were going to look at those kind of improvements, that we should look at what the potentials are for expansion, reconfiguration, and reprogramming this as somewhat of a community park rather than sort of just a destination point, primarily for three real users there, the Little League, sort of the dog park folks, and the Horseshoe, and to look at trying to expand that beyond that point. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity for the community to weigh in. And with that, I will turn it over to Melanie, and she has a great short presentation for you to just start the process going. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Thank you, commissioners, for having me back so soon. Okay, so who we are. Quick recap of what we did last. That was good. It's late, right? All right. So what we talked about last time, I'm Melanie Reynolds. I am with Gates & Associates for Landscape Architects and Planners in Walnut Creek, California. Efforts to date on Smithfield Master Plan project, we have done a site assessment and public outreach. So here's the site I think everyone's familiar with. Our site assessment we looked at last time, everything in the blue is wetlands. So we have to be really, cognizant of what we're doing as far as improvements around those.
Wetlands or wetland buffers.
Yes, wetlands and wetland buffers. So you'll see that a lot of our concepts are really constrained by this. And then let's see, community engagement. We were at the Night of Lights. We heard the community liked all of the current uses that are at the park. Their top 4 amenities they'd like to see added were a playground, picnic and gathering areas, a larger dog park, and pickleball. The online survey that was open for about a month, 60% of the visitors reside within the city. Most visit, or at least half visit once a week. Most are families with children. Majority of people come via car. Their wants really mirrored what we saw at the parade. So adding picnic areas, a playground, sand volleyball, and a shade structure. And so now let's chat about alternatives. So I have 3 alternatives prepared. Let me go through all 3, and then I kind of open it up for discussion. I also have prepared, I'm prepared to move things around if you want to see how certain things fit or whatnot. So just bear with me as I go through the concepts before we get into kind of the discussion point. So alternatives, concept A really is just improve the parking, use that donor money to improve what it's intended for. And so you can see A is the kind of redesigned and improved parking area. This also adds parking over by the existing Horseshoe and dog park. People park there already, so why not provide them actual parking stalls? And this one would also include project signage. So signage at the entry, you can see with B down in the corner here on Wavecrest, and then also the other B at the entry to open space. Concept B, so a little heavier touch here. A, just like with concept A, would be to improve the parking lots and expand them. B, you can see up the middle, is to pave the maintenance access that currently exists or is used, I guess, informally or formally between the ball fields. C would be, once again, project signage, both for the park and then the open space. D would be to improve and renovate all the ball fields. So they would stay where they're at. We would just improve grading, drainage, fencing, seating, all the good stuff to make them, like new. E would be to relocate the snack shack. It's currently, you can see here on the aerial behind there down here. We would move it to a more central location, kind of out of the parking and, give it a little more space. And then F would be picnic zone. So there's a large picnic zone kind of here on the southern end of the softball field. We also added a picnic zone in the center of the ball fields that'll allow for, you know, kind of gathering in between games or, you know, chilling as you wait for your kid to be done. And then G would expand the dog park. So we heard a lot that we want a small and a big dog park, right? We don't want them all playing in the same place. So we would just reshape this and expand it out a little bit with the small dog park here to the west and the larger dog park to the east. Then H would be a plaza with a play area, picnic, and restroom. So what we heard, we wanted a playground for kids, you know, while their brother and sisters are playing, or for people to come. It's more of a community park and not just a ball field and horseshoes and dog park. This would have a picnic area with shade and then also a restroom. So then I is a sport court area. So what you see here is a sand volleyball court, a basketball court, and 2 pickleball courts. There's also a little kind of, you know, plaza area between to give a buffer between the dog park and the sports users, and also somewhere for the sports court users to, you know, put their stuff or gather between sets or games. And then J, we've just consolidated the storage that's kind of piecemeal throughout the site up here into the top where there's already some storage happening. And then K would be the nature paths and seating. So we talked briefly last time that this area is not impacted by wetlands, but because of its size and linear, you know, aspect, it really lends itself for a natural area where you can, you know, either go for a walk or sit on a bench and, you know, take a look at the wildlife and the wetlands around you. There's a lot of cool stuff happening out there. So that's concept B. Concept C is like brand new park, like what kind of, you know, sky's the limit here. So once again, A is improve and expand the parking lot. So it expands the parking lot to the east a bit towards the entry. So we add more stalls. We would once again pave the maintenance access up the middle of the ball fields. We would replace and reorient all the ball fields. So currently all the ball fields have kind of been like fit into these little wedges. And so we would, like I said, we'd reshape them and, you know, make them regular shaped and sized. And also we would repurpose this. I think this is currently field 4, if I'm saying it correctly. So this could be used for any, so both the older kids and then the younger kids. So this field could be, I don't know, I don't think it's being used fully right now. So we would want to repurpose this to be used. We would once again,
it would be a flex field, basically. Yes. Taking what's field 5 today.
Thank you.
And allowing both function for field 4 and field 5 on the single
Correct.
field.
Correct. And then, so we relocated the snack shack to the center of the ball fields. It's also still accessible for deliveries and maintenance. Once again, just provides a little more space for the snack shack. And I know it's the office and, you know, there can be changing rooms and restrooms there and all that kind of good stuff that they would need for umpires and staff and volunteers. And then F would be a synthetic turf field multi-use. So what you see here is accommodates a softball field that is currently out there. So it's the same size. And then going oriented east-west is a full-sized. So I'm going to blow these numbers, but it's like 360 by 260 or 320 by 220, a full-size soccer field. And then going north to south, we can also fit kind of the next size down of that. So that would be synthetic turf, multi-use field. And then we would relocate the dog park from its current position here to where the existing ball field was, and we would have both a large and a small dog park. H, once again, is a plaza with picnic, play area, and restroom, so similar that you saw in option B. And then we have the sports courts up here as well. So that's once again, sand volleyball, your basketball, and 2 pickleball courts with a little kind of seating plaza area in between. There is this picnic zone between the dog park and the synthetic field. You know, when people come with their dogs, it's kind of nice to stop and, you know, orient and figure out how to make sure you can get their collar off and all that good stuff, or just gather and hang out. So that's another little picnic or gathering zone. And then once again, oh, K is wrong. So storage is up here again. Sorry, guys. Once again, we're just consolidating all the storage on site to one location that's accessible and kind of out of the way. And then the nature paths are actually out here again. So this is a little bigger. It's a bit bigger than B, takes advantage a little bit more of the natural setting. And then kind of the big change on this is that we would relocate the horseshoe pits to another site within the city that was amenable to both the city and the horseshoe group. So those are the three concepts. I can dance between these 3 pages, or we can move things around. I'll just move around as we discuss. So if you want to see something specific, I can probably accommodate that.
Melanie, can you go back to A? Sorry, can you go back to A, because I didn't really see that. I only sort of got with the program when you were doing B and C. So then, so now I'm kind of like a little more oriented to how you're presenting. Okay, so this was really simple. Just
this is like
okay.
Nothing, right? This is
can I jump in really quick? And we're on the right path, but because this is a workshop and we do have members of the public here, I want to make sure we follow a little more process. So I think where we're at now, which is exactly what Commissioner Eisen is doing, is this is clarifying questions. So if commissioners have questions about the presentation, didn't understand something, didn't quite, just questions, we'll take the time to do that now. And then we'll do public comment for anybody in the community that wants to speak. And then when that's complete, then council members can start throwing out ideas and having more of a deliberation. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So Melanie, back to A, the whole ideas of A, B, and C. Is A, did I hear you say that basically doing A is, would spend the money that we're being given to help with this Smithfield?
Yes, it would be to just do what the donor money is intended for.
Okay, so anything else is either grants, city, whatever. Okay.
Correct.
And this improved the parking lot, and I mean basically this part you have in both B and C as well, right? So this is like a foundational part of the Smithfield overhaul.
They kind of build on each other.
Right. Yes, okay, good.
Absolutely.
Now, what happened to the bocce? I thought we had a bocce court in this idea here on Smithfield the last time we spoke, and somehow it's not there in any of these plans.
Their bocce did not rank really high on the community input. You can see between the plans, that's not something, or that wouldn't be hard to accommodate if that's something that this commission feels really strongly about.
Oh yeah, I know the other question I have for you. The nature part.
Yep.
Those trails, that idea, is that because those areas are habitat areas that all we can do is the trails in there, or is there anything else one can do in that area?
You can see the skinny part between the red is not within the buffers of the wetlands, so we could do things there. The skinny kind of linear nature of it makes it difficult. Also in community input and what we heard is that people really enjoy the natural areas out here and coming out and walking, and looped trails are really popular these days.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But, just next to Smithfield is trails and trails along those bluffs, which I have walked and done quite a bit of. So, so that exists already in my mind.
Let me, if I could. The answer is a very simple one. It's not wide enough and big enough of an area to really put any active use in there. That it just doesn't. If you look at it, it's an extremely narrow area. We're trying to put something in there that at least gives some benefit back to the community. Otherwise, it's basically open space wetland area or buffer area out there.
Okay, but is there maybe can that be a picnic area? Can you put tables and and benches and sort of a hangout kind of area?
We have little benches and nodes because the idea is that people are going to want to go and sit, right, and observe.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason that those couldn't be picnic tables as well.
Right, right.
The other thing I'll just add to that piece is because it's narrow and it is more natural habitat, not habitat area, but natural area. Vehicles and maintenance are going to be a challenge out there. People aren't going to be able to drive out there and park. So we really just looked at a light touch out there. And one of the things that we talked about is maybe keying in on making it really accessible so that if somebody was interested in bird watching or the things that go on in the open space out there, but it's harder for them to navigate the trails, we could create a path that anybody could access, seniors.
Yeah, that would be nice. Is there enough there that we could do an interpretive, like in other words, to identify plants, native plants?
Yes.
That would be a nice thing, is to be able to have that. Yeah.
I think anytime you're adjacent and interfacing with this type of habitat and an important commodity and amenity to the city, we want to point that out. So we would absolutely put provisions for educational signage.
Yeah.
One of the things I think you have to keep in mind is that the more active it gets, the more we're going to be forced to put fencing around that, and it really will reduce the aesthetic and the environment out there a bit for folks, because once you start really getting I'll go back to the picnickers of why I wouldn't suggest it, is that once you do that, your kids go where they want to go and they go into the areas where they really are not supposed to be going. We have to fence it, and that becomes then a completely different kind of environment out there. So this is the balancing act we have with the local coastal plan, with the coastal act, and with these buffer areas. And I don't always like saying what I'm saying.
Understood. Got it.
Do we have any other clarifying questions for Melanie before we go to public comment?
No.
Okay.
Can you summarize easily the difference between concept B and C? Because it's hard to look at it just all B and then all C, and it's hard to
B leaves the fields as they currently are. It just rehabilitates them and keeps them in place, doesn't move fences, anything like that, just makes them like I said, kind of renews them, gives them new life. Option B kind of wipes the slate clean and redoes it and reorients everything brand new.
And integrates in soccer.
And it's
a multi-purpose use field there for where field.
Yeah, and moves things around. It also we remove the horseshoes from this one.
Yeah, I think that soccer component is really important. What do you think, our soccer coaches and people? What do you think?
I agree. My brother coaches soccer for the club, Rathbun Bay, and he says that finding enough space on Cunha is a little tough and challenging because there's a lot of teams out there practicing. So I agree. Right. I think that's a great idea.
I have a lot of thoughts too about the various designs and feedback, much as Luis has just mentioned around the field usage, but I think we're supposed to do public comments first and only ask questions right now.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if anyone has any other questions to help us clarify things before we give the public a chance, and then we can continue to kind of give some of this feedback along these lines. Is that what you were asking, Matthew?
Yes.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so if there's no questions, let's go to public comment. Eddie?
I'm sorry, one more question.
Yes.
Is the footprint, the size based on B and C, any different for the dog parks?
Yeah, it's significantly larger in C.
It is larger in C. Yeah. Okay, good. So that's those kind of clarifying in terms of like understanding the differences between the two is important.
Yeah, super helpful. We kind of start new, right? So we can control the shape. I mean, in a certain way because we still have the wetland boundaries, but we can kind of start new. Whereas B, we played off the existing shape. Let me go back. Yeah. And just expanded it.
Right.
So, yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. So for our attendees on the call right now, if you have a comment, go ahead and raise your hand by clicking your raise hand button at the bottom, and we'll just go in the order that you raise them. First, we have Carol Wexler. Carol, you are good to go ahead.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great. I have a question on the moving the dog park. You said that that would be much larger if you moved the dog park to the other area.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes, it would be larger.
And where's the access to the dog park? Is that between the two fields?
So you can go between the Little League fields and then the softball field up the center, or you can walk along a path that is along essentially the outfield fence of the synthetic turf field.
Now, is that a driving?
It is not
road?
driving. It is not. It is walk.
So you'd have to walk your dog. That would be totally unacceptable to most people. It's not so easy to get your dog, walk your dog past confusion and get it into a dog park. Believe me, ask me. And another question I have is, how many weeks do the ball fields, the Little League, use the ball fields? Do you know?
I have that information. It's most of the year. There's a couple months like during the winter when they're impacted by weather, but they have a spring, summer, and fall league, I believe. And I'm sure someone from Little League is on and can clarify that.
Okay, so me personally, who has used the dog park ever since it opened, almost, well, not now, but almost every day, it is not easy to get a dog to walk along a path and into the dog park when there's confusion. It's really difficult, especially for somebody that has a dog that's new to them. So I don't think most people would like to your C option at all. So that's speaking for myself and probably most people that use the dog park. So unless you could drive pretty close to the dog park and get out of your car and walk your dog a short distance, I don't think C would be, your plan C would be very acceptable.
Okay.
But thank you. I think B would probably be nicer. Anyway, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, and for public attending the meeting, if you do have a public comment, just go ahead and click your raise hand button at the bottom. We'll move on to our next speaker, Kirk Ramier.
Hello. My question is whether there is a way to fit a community aquatic center, a tool pool center for public access in there, perhaps in that region K. But one of the things that was just pointed out is you do need to have access to buildings that with just long walks to facilities, I guess, are going to be a barrier for a lot of seniors, especially. So how much room would it take, and is there anything that's incompatible with the LCP to put such a structure, which would need water and utilities, of course, like that wooded area there, yes, that you're drawing sort of east of the most of the developed area. There's the wooded area where the trees are shown. Could something like that be fit in there? This would also be one of those things where people coming to this site to be involved in different activities could also, some of their kids could be there at the same time. It'd be centralizing a really important community feature that we're trying to see where it might be located.
So what I'm going to suggest is that that we take the questions first and we don't try to do an iterative process. We'll
absolutely fine. Thank you.
I'm just for Melanie.
I agree.
Okay.
So are you wanting us to go on to the next questioner then? The next public comment?
That's right. Rather than answering questions individually, we kind of collectively get it, and then Melanie can answer them all at once.
Okay. So let's find any other public comments.
So it looks like talking's permitted for somebody that has 576391, but no name.
Hi, I'm Rick Della Santina, president of the Half Moon Bay Horseshoe Club. I didn't realize that I had to log in with that number that was given to me. I would have put down horseshoes. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I have two questions. One, if you go with Plan B, would we have parking or would you remove the parking from us?
Okay.
And Melanie, at some point, your screen got weird.
I know. I just saw that.
Okay.
Sorry.
And yeah, I can't see the, there we go.
There we go.
So we like the idea of restrooms. The playground area would be in our current parking lot. Where would we park? That seems like to be the access road to the dog park and the pickleball and the volleyball and what have you. So what would our situation be for parking on Plan B, Concept B? So that's a question. I guess you're not going to answer till later on.
I can answer really quickly. You'd park all here in A. This is all parking.
All parking in A.
Yep.
Okay.
Up here.
If we go with Concept C, where would the city relocate the horseshoe courts? How many courts would we have, and would we have restrooms and parking?
That's probably a question more for John and I.
Yeah.
The answer is I don't think we've identified a location yet. We've had some ideas over the years, and yeah, I think any sort of relocation would come with similar facilities and making sure it's really a win-win for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
And we would work with your group to, if this was the alternative that the city chose, we would definitely work with you all.
Okay,
And if I could say this, I think what we have to keep in mind on all of these concepts is, first of all, there is no money to do concept A, B, or C at this point.
Such the.
I know.
Yes.
So what we're looking at is a plan and to figure out where and what kind of the programming looks like. So even at that point, I would not say that this was an imminent action ready to occur. We still have to go through a lot of processes. So there's plenty of conversation time for discussions about any of the alternatives that ultimately sort of get laid out. But second of all, for any relocation, if there is any to be done. So, please don't go away thinking that this is happening tomorrow. It's
gotcha, John. That said, John, what's the timeline when this project might start?
Don't have one at this point. We're hoping, and I know I'm off what I said I was going to do, which is to try to answer to it, but I think it's fair enough. We didn't really get into it.
Uh-oh, he froze.
It in my early kick is that we have
You've been freezing, John. Can you start over?
I'm sorry. I'll stop the video and just go on audio. Only to say this, we have a potential donor. We do not have a commitment. And the reason we're moving forward with this is to try to look at and identify what could happen out there. How would we address this rather than just paving over what we've got? Let's take a look at the bigger picture of what we could have out here. And at that point, so at this point, the plan is to move forward with this, to get to a plan in the next couple of months that has the preferred alternative. And then we basically reach out to the donor and say, are you willing to sign on the dotted line toward an X amount to at least do certain features of this project? And then we'll look at phasing beyond that point.
So the way I'm perceiving this is you're going to submit concepts A, B, and C to the donor and then see where that goes from there?
No, we're going to be coming back to the Planning Commission and ultimately to the council to identify a plan, the preferred alternative. This is for a conversation piece tonight. What we could see is concepts B and C consolidated into a single concept as the final plan. Who knows what it's going to be at this point. This is, again, for a conversation starter. We could see 2 sand volleyball courts instead of a basketball court, for example. We just wanted to show for all kind of users the potential out here, and it's not necessarily landing on that it has to be a basketball court, for example. It could be, another pickleball court. It could be another sand volleyball court. It could be not a basketball court or anything active there. So.
Okay, a couple of more clarifying questions.
We actually have one more public speaker.
One second, okay.
All right.
Thank you, Rick. Next up, we have Joyce Logan. Joyce, are you there?
She hasn't been moved up to speak. The mic's still on Rick.
Yeah, can you mute Rick, Eddie? There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now? This is Joyce.
Yes,
We can.
Hey, okay. So just 2 quick comments. I will concur with Carol Wexler that parking needs to be next to the dog park for that unloading. Dogs are so excited to get to the dog park that walking amongst a bunch of children would not be a wise thing to do. But I do like the size of that dog park in concept C. In concept B, there's a lot of activity court right next to the existing dog park. That could create conflict as well in terms of safety. I see that there's the parking there, and that's excellent. But the active play of tennis or basketball right next to a dog park is perhaps not a wise setup. And I thank you all for the work you're doing. This is going to be a complex project. That's it. Thank you.
And we have Carol Wexler, who would like to make another comment. Carol, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
We can hear you now.
Oh, good. I'm not very good at this. Another comment I wanted to make about the walking to the dog park. We do have elderly people, and some people come in wheelchairs. So that's another reason why not having the parking lot next to the dog park would be cumbersome. And it would be important to have the small dog park it would be important to have access to the small dog park close to a parking area, because there are a lot of elderly people that would come with their small dogs. So that's something to think about as well. And thank you for the time also to let me speak. And I appreciate all the work that you put into this as well. So thanks.
Thank you, Carol.
That's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that it?
It's like that's all of our public comments.
Okay, so I've got another question, just to make sure I understand. Where's what is it, Melanie? Is it? Yeah, Melanie is. So in C, in concept C, it looks like we're losing parking space.
Oop. We're not losing parking space that you already have. We're actually adding to parking that you already have. It has less than B, though.
It has less than B. Yeah. Okay, because it doesn't have that.
We consolidate all of the parking into one spot, and I'm sorry. And this is what happened here. We consolidated all the parking down to the south to allow for more consolidated use of, active areas. And we also are trying to maintain some trees. I want to put that out there. This is a beautiful stand of trees that are, aged and big and mature. So our goal is also not to wipe those out.
Right, but there's parking there already.
No,
there's not.
Well,
they currently
isn't Carol,
park right
isn't
here.
what Carol is, isn't she parking right up there by the,
They park here.
where do they park?
They park
Go to
right
the-
here currently.
Yeah, so that's parking spaces.
Yeah, so that's the parking that Paulette is saying we're losing is the informal lot.
It's not
next-
formal. It's just a dirt gravel. And I think when we were out there, there were 2 or 3 cars. It doesn't hold tens of 20s of cars, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but of course, it sounds like it's at least important to a couple, if not more people who are older and have dogs and don't want to be having to travel a distance to get to the dog park.
So, and I think this is an excellent segue into actually the conversation that needs to be had ultimately, which is that we cannot meet everybody's desires with this deal. So the reason we're here in great part is to, one, hear what you as the commissioners think and what your vision for what we should be doing for recreational opportunities with this. Certainly, we partnered extensively with the dog park folks, but Commissioner Eisen, Paulette, we've talked about the fact that we both agree that looking at an alternative location for the dog park might be the best answer altogether at the old landfill out of Poplar, as opposed to being here. And so, the one thing I just want to warn and sort of warn us against that is thinking that this is the only place that the dog park could be as well. And that we basically design the park around one user group where that user group might be better served in another location. So I think that's the balancing act. That's why Melanie's here, but that's the difficulty in this issue that we're kind of dealing with on this. And and again, if you go back to the constraints, Melanie, I think that's a good place to start the conversation with, to some extent, which is basically the areas that are not in the blue are areas that you can do something with, plus a little bit of the existing fields where you have the luxury of having impacts already there. So it is an extremely compact area that we have to deal with. And it becomes a question of what your vision as the commission is with the input from the community, but keeping in mind that you're never going to meet all of the desires of every group.
So how many baseball, right now we're showing 5 baseball fields.
They play on 4. The field 3 is a rec field softball field that the city uses for rec softball. They play on field 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Okay, and how attached are we to make sure that those 4 baseball fields continue to exist?
I think we have a commitment to Little League. We've had a long-term commitment. They serve hundreds and hundreds of families in this community every year. We have
so the commitment for those 4 fields.
But let me say, remember, Alternative C looked at consolidating and taking Field 5 out and utilizing Field 4 for both Field 4 and 5. The issue is the reason Field 4 is not used greatly because it is basically the high school kids level play. It's the junior that some years they don't even field a team, frankly, because it's made up of kids who are in high school or entering into high school, and it's a high school size field. We believe that they could integrate in and use that as they do for Field 5 on that field and then still be able to use it for Field 4 use as the junior team as well. And that way we would open up the area that's identified as G for other purposes, whether it doesn't have to be the dog park. It could be any number of things.
Understood, but are they, so let me just back up here, John. I mean, are these, so this idea, concept C, or even I think concept B also have only the 3 baseball fields?
No, it retains all of them.
Oh, retains all of them. I see. And so based on your talks with these folks, do you think let's say if we said we really like concept C, would they be okay with it?
We'd have to go back and talk with them. Absolutely.
Okay.
I will say that in some of the discussions I was in with them, they didn't seem completely opposed to looking at the fields, and they certainly indicated improving and making the fields
usable,
high quality.
Right.
Was more important to them than retaining all the fields. All the fields.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Okay, good. So,
and remember, field under C or whatever hybrid you would choose, if you choose the C, that all sports field would include still the rec softball field, which the Little League uses for practices as well and everything. So you would still retain a softball, baseball field in that. So, at least for practices, obviously it has to be organized and scheduled out around soccer seasons and everything with that deal. But that's not unusual. There's many of these around.
So both plans would have this multi-sports use. No.
Not at this point, no.
Not a multi-sport field. They would all multi-sports on the site, but not on one field. Option C is the only one with a multi-sport field.
And so in B, where would a soccer group end up playing?
They would not. There's not provisions for a soccer field in B.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why I'm leaning towards C. I like that multi-use idea a lot. I think that's important. I like the idea of making this more of a community park, not, to have more activities that one can, more sports, not just solely focused on baseball. So I kind of like that, but I am concerned about the parking thing. So I'm wondering if there's a way to do some kind of amalgamation of the two plans.
That's certainly, I think, what we expect to come from the conversation.
Yeah, because let's say that which is here I'm looking at a sport court area, would be still, or the lower part would, and then you'd move that lower to the upper to still be a small dog park and be able to do parking.
There is the possibility you would have to look at the tree. You would have to look at removing the trees. Remember this scenario, all of these options basically would look at pretty much the removal of those.
I hate removing any trees.
The buildings.
The green buildings.
That we can say goodbye to immediately if it was up to me.
I think we tend to agree in principle. We would have to go through a process, but
right, we know. Yeah,
we would be looking at trees, and that would have to come out. It's not impossible to do.
There's absolutely a scenario though where we can look at maybe the sports active uses go back here, because if you're going to play basketball, do you really care if you have to walk 200 feet further? And maybe we can move parking. I will also say though, people with children like to have parking and restrooms near each other in the play field or in the play area. So we can look at maybe there's a reorientation of this.
Yeah,
for sure.
Can I think the one question was raised. Can I take a whack at the issue of the pool?
Yeah, let me help you.
And then so let me just say that obviously, as we were kicking off this conversation, the pool has always been, something that we're aware of. There certainly is a possibility, but you are looking at a significant need for parking. So regardless of what the pool building itself looks like in terms of structure, you've got significant parking demands that come from that, meets all the things that come around with that. And that's more of a year round and certainly more demand even, and then combine that with Little League. I will say this, from our perspective, when we look at traffic, when we look at the issues of access at Wave Crest, at Highway 1, adding that kind of activity and that much people there, I think it's a hazardous situation that I'm very uncomfortable with bringing that up and adding that to this point. I think it's also at the wrong place in terms of the context of where the population of the community is and where it should be located. Again, those are all things I think that have to be looked at down the road. Ultimately, as we're talking about the dog park, we're talking about Little League, we're talking about every other user, sport court user, whatever. The pool issue is just one additional user in the mix. I know that there are multi-generational users to this issue, and I'm not making light of that, but it is an interest just like any of those. And so you're going to have to look at trading off with those things. I think the ultimate answer to this is that if at some point in the future, this was the area and this was the location that was deemed to be the best and most suitable place, the community would ultimately then have to decide on what it would lose on this field and this project if the money was available, the $25 to $30 million to build this pool, and then you would go from there.
And what I'm showing is the minimum size. So it's not the two pool facility, it's a single pool facility. You can look up Salinas Aquatic Center if you want a similar facility. And we discussed this with an architect who does and specializes in this. So this is absolutely the minimum required size would be in the green that I'm showing, just for context.
And unfortunately, I know enough about the Salinas one to know that they built a brand new facility, and when budgetary situations came, it sat empty and unused for almost 2 years, I believe, from that point, because they couldn't figure out how to manage and operate it because of funding issues within the city. So that's the reality of and the challenges of that. But this was also their one pool was located next to an existing facility as well. So it wasn't just a one pool scenario on it for them ultimately, but this replaced a site. But again, this is all about trade-offs. And that's what we're going to have to get through talking.
That's very helpful to see the scale to get a sense of that.
And this is not what we've been, and the single pool is not what folks have really been envisioning. This I do not believe includes the senior therapy pool. It doesn't include any of those things. So this footprint is absolutely not realistic, and it's the reason why I wouldn't even hazard that as being the right footprint, even close to it, from what the vision of the community is out there. It's at least double that footprint plus parking.
Yeah.
All right. May I ask a few questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the cost of the project, can I just, like, from a clarifying question perspective, let's say we want to move a particular direction, you would try to move forward with that. Let's pretend council approves it and all the various things, or would you be trying to get the funding before you went to council, and then it might come back to us and people say, oh, we can't do it, we didn't get the funding, and then we adjust? Or how is that? Just walk me through that process.
We obviously want to land on, in the next couple of months, a plan, our master plan, our facilities master plan, and this is the vision. Part of that facilities master plan will be looked at in the context of how can we phase it.
Okay.
And part of this issue is also starting to identify what are the priorities? How do you prioritize what you want to see here? Obviously, the donor has some ideas about what they might wish to prioritize, absolutely, and that sort of takes precedent. And what we understand is the parking, pavement, and driveways and all of that deal, plus maybe some of the baseball is a possibility. So obviously that's the start of where the prioritization comes, is what is a donor willing to provide to us. I think at that point, then we have to, as a community, sit down and basically walk through what are the other and how do you prioritize the rest of these things, and how do you then phase around to this point. Again, we never thought we'd be building, starting to build in May, Carter Park, and money came forward, and here we are, ready to go to the April 5th council meeting with a award of that contract for construction.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So you know, that's that you got to start somewhere, and that's where this is at that point. But certainly we have to look at this as being a phased approach.
Well, and I guess, oh, go ahead.
No, there would be a cost estimate included, you know, a high level planning cost estimate as part of the master plan. So you know a target of what you need to build.
Well, and where I'm going with that thought process a little bit is like, I mean, is how do we keep those baseball fields, because they are used pretty much nonstop, like in how do we keep that going if we phase it through? Just any parts. Is that part of our thought process yet? Of just
not yet. But we would need to think about interim uses and, you know, discussions with how we, like, just like you said, how we keep kids playing. And it might get hairy at situations and times, but that is the goal.
Yeah. Remember, there's the main, like for Little League itself, the primary season runs from roughly February into February.
Yes.
To May. And then you've got Junior Giants, which could, you know, is not a huge program.
No, we could potentially.
And you have travel ball, and you've got fall ball for Little League. I assure you, my field, you know, I've spent enough time with Little League folks. They would forego fall ball in order to basically allow for construction and reconstruction of any of the fields to get better drainage and better improved, you know, areas there and deal with that. I mean, that's what you're going to have to look at. And, you know, so the key, I think, for them is looking at not messing up the main
season
time, the main season time.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too. That's great. That's great information. That's good clarifying. And then currently in Plan C, the field F is the only field that would then turn to turf.
Correct.
Is that correct? And that's the only time we're going to have any of those fields turf. Is that also correct?
Again,
no.
The only reason we're going there. But again, the donor, there has been discussion on at some point with Little League and conversations. There are grants available that they are actually eligible to even go after and deal with it. So nothing necessarily precludes this. We would have to know that there's a possibility of turf, of a field turf for CEQA, for the environmental review on this deal. And certainly from the perspective of drainage, stormwater drainage, all those things, and deal with that. But nothing at this point precludes it. It would be good to know whether this commission feels that field turf is an acceptable alternative for all of those fields. Given the water circumstances that we're looking at, field turf is looking that much better in the context of that. But remember, you're looking at 8 years, 10 years maximum life on these field turfs. You've got to have a plan to replace them. And so if I wish they were a 20-year, but they're a 8 to 10 year maximum time. So even F is a scary proposition to know that you're going to have to replace that field turf. Now, you don't have to necessarily replace all of the base and everything, but it's still an expensive proposition to go in and replace.
Interesting.
When we were reorienting these fields, so if you look like both of these, you know, what is it, 1 and 2, they're very organized in a nice rectangle now that you could make that synthetic really easily, you know, because there was discussion with Little League that they could possibly fundraise as well. And like John was saying, get grants. So yeah, there's nothing that precludes them from moving forward with that.
Yeah, I feel like in talking to some of the Little League, and granted, I would need to really know this, but it sounded to me like they would seem to be open towards a turf field if they could get at least one of them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's more use year round for sure. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But otherwise, and so that answers my clarifying questions really. And then just I'll give you my perspective and then we can kind of go on. As someone that, I was at the soccer fields earlier at the start of this whole meeting, coaching. And so I coach 2 club soccer teams and the fields are definitely busy all the time. And the other thing is this would then be the only field with, and I would assume we would hopefully be able to keep it there, but lights. So we have a hard time being able to, especially during daylight savings and certain times a year, the field use is so packed because that's all there is. So having a field that has access to lights would change things dramatically, and you could have night games and all the various things, and it'd be kind of exciting and a different way to go about it. So I'm all about trying to get that field F as part of the plan. But then on the flip side, other things real quick, we don't have public tennis courts in Half Moon Bay. We've got them at the high school. We've got them at the middle school. So tennis courts that people can access, maybe not 24/7, but I mean, why not? 24/7 is kind of revolutionary for the town. I think that would just be an absolute game changer. So I'm very excited about that. When I go to those fields, my kids are now of the age where I don't know if they'd use that playground anymore, but back in the day, holy moly, would that have been nice, right? So I can understand the want and the need for that. Especially when you're watching, you're one of the kids play and the younger brother needs a play structure. So that makes a lot of sense to me as well. And then you guys know this, but I'll just throw it out there again. Sand volleyball was a big piece of my life back in the day. I still want to get sand volleyball to happen as much as possible. I think the courts that went in at Kelly Beach were amazing, but to have something that's permanent like this, that people can access all the time, I would be checking to see if people are playing all the time and just jumping in. So, lots of different uses there. The one thing I could possibly forego, interestingly enough, just so it's out there, is the sports courts. And I do play basketball, basketball court, but I feel like we do have enough facility in Half Moon Bay, where you can just easily go to different locations to play basketball. So I feel like I don't imagine that would get tremendous use, especially outside with the infrastructure that exists. So if I could forego anything from my personal perspective, keep everything in C. I don't, except for the basketball courts and kind of sport court piece. Unless that has to do, that's not the tennis courts as well, is it?
Well, we wouldn't have to do a basketball court. We could. Well, there's pickleball. There's 2 pickleball and a sand volleyball. There are no tennis courts currently on here.
Oh, there's no tennis courts. All right. So
you want to swap basketball for tennis, is what I hear.
I want to swap basketball for tennis. We got plenty of basketball.
Pickleball is the new tennis, my friend.
Well, and we need the pickleball.
My feelings are hurt now, Adam. My feelings are hurt right now, Adam. Wow.
Luis, how many places do you play basketball in Half Moon Bay? Do you ever go? I mean, do you play? There's the game at the
event center.
There's the one at the event center. There's the one at the high school. There's the one at Hillary.
Seacrest.
What's the Seacrest? That's the one I mostly play in when I play. So there's a lot of indoor basketball that happens.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, no. I'm just teasing you.
No, but we have not one public tennis court.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm just messing with you.
No.
You're good. You're good. I totally
it.
agree. The only thing that I would suggest is probably, I mean, obviously we're talking about this right now, about this project, but in my opinion, absolutely, we need to get new basketball rims or hoops at Cunha. That's a must at some point. But other than that, you're right. Tennis is needed for sure.
Luis, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Because you had just started talking about soccer when I kind of made everyone go back to questioning. So I want to make sure that you like give all your feedback.
Yeah, no. Same thing, just like Adam said. It's hard getting like a full size space for soccer, right? My brother's coaching at the for the club, and he said it's hard. It's hard. They're sharing, they're splitting half courts or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to implement a full field play, So yeah, I strongly suggest that we keep a soccer field concept in there for sure.
Pat, did you want to add anything as well, or Luis, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's it. I agree with everything Adam said for sure.
Where are you? Are you at a basketball court right now, Luis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now I'm in the city. I'm at Archbishop Reardon for a basketball practice, but I'm on the meeting right now. So
nice. I hear some.
Yeah,
I like it.
Right on, brother.
Yeah.
Is Pat still on here? I'm just looking through. Okay, I don't see her, so I am going to take a turn to say a few things then. So I agree with most of the comments that everyone has made so far. I just am thrilled with the idea of having a park that is so full of activities that span age groups. And this really especially the Plan C does an amazing job of addressing the enormous number of fights that have occurred because of soccer, lack of field space for soccer. It also, I think, does a neat job of increasing the amount of dog park space. I totally hear the concerns about the location and the parking. So I'm not going to lean in more on that right now, because I think it will be an act of creativity to sort of sort out how to save trees and address the number of comments. The one thing that I just think stands out to me is that you have a concept here where you can have teams practice for soccer. You could have teams practice for baseball. And then there's kind of like the sprinkling of other activities over there for the pickleball and the sand volleyball. And I really want to question if it would make sense to just lean in and say, okay, let's make enough courts for sand volleyball that you could also have teams practice there, because you're thinking long term about like where the city's going, and this park is going to be, it's going to be a little while before it's built. And if this sport continues to grow, we might end up with increasing interest in the sport, as we've seen with the Olympics, that we've seen with the just like exponential growth of the sport in Half Moon Bay. All you have to do is have 3 of them, and then you can have teams. And so I think I just want to question that as like a long-term thinking. And I don't know if there are pickleball teams or how exactly that works, but it would be the same question of just, if we're going to make this amazing place where you can do these things, wouldn't it be nice if we could serve other sorts of teams on the coast, not just soccer and baseball? So that's kind of the question I'll pose. I'm not sure about, the spacing looks like it's possible. So it's really
Hillary,
just in my opinion.
Can I question you about, I'm just jumping, kind of trying to get into what you're saying, which I like a lot of what you're saying. Are you suggesting, let's say, looking at concept C, are you suggesting, let's say, the G, which is basically the dog park, instead to turn that into two volleyball courts?
I'm not trying to be as prescriptive as that, because I feel like the designer is really going to need to come up with some strategies that address this question of like parking that works for dogs and, kids and.
Right. But I mean, one of the things, Hillary, that, is a possibility is that the dog park is not at Smith Field, period.
Yes. Yeah. That's true. And so I think the point that I'm trying to make here I have not attempted to design something because I didn't feel it was necessarily my job to like tell someone what to do in that way. But I am asking, for example, it appears to me that you could fit 3 volleyball courts. And I wonder if there would be a similar, like Adam has brought up tennis courts, which are currently not here. A tennis court maybe one tennis court is sufficient for this purpose. I'm not sure, but those are the questions that I think would be helpful to know, because when we think about long-term use, I would love to know that people could come to this place and have the need met of the sport in the community. And in some sports might be more easily met than others. Like maybe you need 2 tennis courts and they're twice as big as volleyball courts, so it starts to get crazy. But 3 sand volleyball courts, not so much space. So that seems doable. And then you have a third team that can actually practice at this facility. So I see, already you like designing stuff. So
I'm just moving it around.
Yeah. I mean, so clearly it fits.
So I like the vision. I like the vision, Hillary.
I think what I'm hearing from you, Hillary, is this. Can we accommodate additional sand volleyball courts? I think the answer is absolutely yes. Can we come back with concepts that look at that? Certainly. I think this was designed, again, even where I is right now, if you took those 3 uses there and said, we're just going to make them sand volleyball courts there in the original, yes, we can make 3 sand volleyball courts right there.
Right.
There's sufficient area there. Clearly, we've heard some questions raised about the dog park. I think we need to look at whether we're willing to deal with the trees in there and to clear out that grove of trees, in part to perhaps accommodate the dog park, for example, there, or a reconfiguration there, for example.
I was curious actually about that question. Would a dog park be able to be under trees?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about that. It seems like one of the few uses that would actually go nicely with trees is a dog park, because then you're in the shade, not getting the sun beating down on you. Not that it happens that often.
The coastal is not such a big deal, but it's a bit of a maintenance challenge in terms of just you've got I think the trees can work. I've seen dog parks that were in somewhat groves, but a lot of the folks love the freedom and the dogs running around. I think it could accommodate, but these are pretty thick. We're going to have to remove trees to be able to accommodate anything in there. And again, these trees are not, we've spoken to CDD. These trees are not, are not really significant stands of great, necessarily wonderful, absolutely fabulous trees, but they are trees. Certainly, we have a lot of trees in this area that serve the purpose of raptor habitat. We certainly wouldn't want to take anything out from that perspective, but it's certainly not out of the realm to remove some trees and to accommodate this issue. So I just sort of put it that way. We've heard the concerns about the parking and access, and certainly ADA issues are a concern for the dog park. So I think that those are very fair comments from Carol and from others as well with regard to that. We understood all along, the desire to look at the beach volleyball and these other things. I will say this, I think that we need to develop our arrangements and our agreements with the school district more fully to get access to the tennis courts, and then evaluate whether we should be investing in and building tennis courts, because they are an extremely difficult. And you know who goes there a lot? The skateboarders like to go to those more than tennis players do. And so they do horrible damage to them, and you know, not intentionally. They just, you know, it's a different use, and that paint and everything, the rubberized surface of whatever you use there. So I'll push back a little bit on it, but still say the door isn't closed on anything. We've heard clearly the multi-use field is important. Is we think what I've heard is for the consensus is the multi-use field should be something that we should look at in the final alternative.
Yes.
I think it would be fantastic for the city of Half Moon Bay to have a field that everyone in the community can use. Yeah. That would be such an asset. And I've thought that since my kids were 5.
And we've heard also that should be lighted. So it could be used during, you know, in the evenings, you know, when it gets dark early.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
With that. There are lights at Field 3, but, you know, we would look at reconfiguring in that scenario and probably adding to that or putting new lighting in. But we heard lighting being an important issue with that.
One other thought, just to finalize the trees, because I am totally a tree hugger, is that I wonder if you could have a short path that goes through part of the trees to get to a smaller like dog park in an area where currently there's really nothing. So just a small suggestion of design. Like I wonder if you could cut out fewer trees and then make a path. So
I think Melanie was pointing out sort of with her little pointer there, but the challenge that, you know, is that you've got that bulb kind of looking area out there that comes out right there. That's getting close to that point, and that is, you know, wetland and wetland buffer. So we'll have to look closely at again, at where that occurs and how close to that occurs and what we have to do to buffer and protect.
But if you need a small dog and a big dog, then maybe a small dog could fit. That was
and we may just be, you know, honestly have to stay with one size, you know, dog park there that we have today, or similar size, and live with that for the time being, and look for a potential larger dog park elsewhere.
All right.
I'm definitely a big supporter of dog parks, though. I mean, I think that we've heard people being concerned about the dog park, and we definitely don't want to make it less good for the dogs.
No.
Just a reminder on this option or concept C, this concept would require us to relocate the horseshoe pits.
The horseshoes, yeah.
And just a reminder that those are very well, very much used and very well loved. And so
now what
that's
about
another
the
important
idea that was thrown out years back of the horseshoes going to the Johnston House? Because first of all, it fits with the period.
It does. That would be so nice.
It goes with the period. So it has that context of fitting
I love that idea.
Their educational, you know,
totally does
history approach.
Yeah, and it
really does.
And that was that is what was envisioned with the master plan of the Parks and Rec master plan.
Right.
Basically looked at that and evaluated that. Clearly, we touched on it briefly today with the Johnston House, but that property is in the county, so it is subject to actually county approvals for CDPs. So there is some issues there that we would have to deal with, and there are other concerns and issues related to agricultural uses and buffers and all those things. But I think you've touched on what we felt all along, what Jill felt, what the community was saying, is that perhaps that is a better place, perhaps a little warmer, a little less windy out there, and maybe a little better location.
And also, I mean, you know, the view from there is lovely.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Okay, and so there should be ways for people to be able to sit and appreciate the view.
Yep.
Who go to visit the Johnston House.
Yeah, I think that it's such a slam dunk. Like that's exactly the right thing to have there. But yeah, we're here. I hear the concerns. I think it's worth looking into too. It's so, because it is from the era and everything. It meets the historical.
It just would be such a beautiful fit. And even to be driving up and seeing on your right-hand side, you know, people throwing horseshoes, and you see that Johnston House. I mean, it would be a sight.
Yeah, I love that. It would make me want to throw horseshoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about it when we do the tour.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And then it's pickleball there. Yeah, I mean, I think that those are my main comments. I really don't want to add too much parking where there can be active use, because I feel like this is such a special opportunity to have active use that was my only other concern. Was I love how you really tried to minimize the parking in the active use in Plan C and get things closer to the parking that need it instead. So I was glad the dog people talked, because I as a huge dog fanatic, I actually didn't consider that. But I think there are a lot of different ways that people deal with their dogs, and it was a really well heard point. And so I don't know how to address that in this plan if we keep that where it is. But yeah, that if there's a way to do it without putting a lot of extra paving on active space, then that is really the preferred way I think it should happen. I was even wondering if like just turning the soccer field at a different angle, it would save some space and maybe work. But I'm assuming that you
encroach into the
Melanie, what about like where H is? What about that area? That's where the dog park is. So that it's right next to park. So it's right next to parking. It's the first thing that you have going in, and then you continue building up the rest of it from there.
That's actually, yeah. And so at Mitchell Park in Palo Alto, if you come from the south side of the park into the park, the way that the dog park is situated is the first thing that you hit when you come in on your right is the dog park, and then you have the gorgeous magical playground. I can't remember what they call it. I think it's magical playground.
Magical bridge.
It's interesting, right? Like it's exactly the same, where you have the kids and dogs next to each other, but the dogs come first and then the kids come next. And then on your left, you have the big sports field. Look at that. And it works really well.
We can take a look at it. We can take a look.
Okay.
I think there's a way we could probably work this.
Yeah. That's why I just want to say how important always it is to hear from the public. I just, I always wish we can hear from more people, because you never know what they're going to say. And they may say something like, as you said, Hillary, and me, I wouldn't have thought of that as an issue. And then when I heard it, I realized, hey, yeah, it's an issue I can see where it is an issue, whereas I hadn't thought about it. And so that's why it's so good to hear from people, just to hear what people think. There's always something to learn.
Does anyone else have any other questions or concerns or ideas or thoughts?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is anyone concerned with the active sport courts moving here? I feel like that user group is fine walking.
Yes.
Do we agree with? Okay.
I think that's totally fine. I think that we can definitely say that any active sport group can walk, and we should just demand it.
Yeah.
Okay. You will walk for your court.
Yeah.
Right.
/ field.
Yep. That's all I had.
But it's exciting. I have to tell you, I find this very exciting to have like a whole sports.
Yeah. Is this enough direction or communication for you?
Yeah, I think that for us, this is enough direction. We'd like to put together kind of all of your your ideas and come back with maybe a plan that addresses all of them with maybe an option or something. But I think we can get to a consensus on this.
It's helpful, clear as mud, or what?
Oh yeah, like not super thick mud. You're fine. We're good. Yeah.
Chair Stamper, we actually, 2 of the public have raised their hands again.
Oh yeah, let's go for
Really
it.
at your discretion if you'd like to take additional public
That's
comments.
fine. We can take a couple more comments and then I guess we can just close this up.
Okay, Eddie, go for it.
Carol, you have your hand raised.
Yes, again. I can't keep my mouth shut. Can you hear me?
It's all right.
Yes.
It's all right.
Okay. I just want to say we would be heartbroken if you moved the dog park out of that area. And I'm not just speaking for myself. I know a lot of people would not want to move the dog park. People use that dog park every day. You may not see it because there are popular times where people come, and it's used every day, rain or shine, cold, hot, doesn't matter when. And the elements can be pretty terrible there. People don't care. They come to the dog park. They love it. And nobody wants it to be moved. I got to tell you, that's where people have labored there to make it a nice site. And until 2018, we didn't have any help from anybody, except the city did somewhere around 2018 put up a fence, and that was very much appreciated. We didn't even have water there for many years. We had to haul in water. So I'm telling you, we love that place. We love it so much that we have broken our backs to keep it maintained. And we would die if that park was moved out of that area. And I got to say, you have great ideas for putting in sports facilities, games and tennis courts and whatever else you want. But the place is not that big. I don't know how you can fit the stuff you're talking about in there. I mean, you're geniuses, but it's not that big. And I got to tell you also, you're not going to stop kids by putting fences up. They jump fences and come in. They've jumped the fences of the dog park and come into the dog park. When they don't have anything to do, they find out ways of doing things. So I told you, I've used that dog park a lot. And those kids, they're very imaginative. So I'll just leave that as another comment.
I have a clarifying question for Carol.
That's all I got to say.
Carol, when you say
that's me
moving the dog park from that area, do you mean from Smith Field or do you mean from its exact location right now?
Well, kind of both, but especially from Smith Field.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of grandfathered in. It's been there a long time, and we kind of like it where it is too. But I don't know. I'm kind of, it's like my child, and a lot of us feel that way. You know, we worked hard on it, and I mean, there's a lot of things we'd like to see done there, but I don't know. Just moving it out of Smithfield would kind of break our hearts. So, I don't know. Anywhere, any other comments, questions for me? Okay.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, guys.
And we have 2 more hands up. We'll go with Joyce first and then Rick.
Hi, this is Joyce. Thank you. I'm going to agree and disagree with Carol, who's my friend. We both use the dog park a lot. She has a long history because she helped build it. I think that improvement is needed in the dog park, in that there does definitely need to be an area for small dogs to play, small and older dogs to play safely away from 18 8-month-old 75-pound galoots that have so much energy they can't contain themselves. So that's one reason I feel strongly that a small dog area is critical because it also accommodates the senior owners of those small dogs and helps keep everybody safe. In terms of it staying at Smith Field, I can respect Carol's sensitivity to that, but I have a stronger leaning towards a really, really updated, modernized dog park that provides more room and more safety for small dogs and seniors. So I kind of like that concept of finding another location for the dog park, and perhaps in association with the horseshoe pits, because we have coexisted well beside each other for all these years. So that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Okay, and lastly, we have Rick.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for taking my call, because I wanted to respect everything that was being said there. So I was writing a bunch of notes that I was going to try to email all of you. First of all, I never mentioned, but we have a strong senior membership. So you're talking about seniors. I was a Park Beach and Recreation leader in Pacifica. I understand that. I coach youth softball, girls softball. And so I understand the large community aspect for children. I think that's really fantastic. And I'm glad you're trying to up it, because for a while there, those fields were not being used, and now they are again, and it's really refreshing. But I would like to say that you could be taking recreation away from us. And I heard the nice things you said about the horseshoe courts. Johnson House would be a problem. We started the season scheduling 21 horseshoe tournaments, and they're Northern California horseshoe tournaments. We have to put in our schedule in Labor Day the year before. That could be a parking problem for us at Johnson House or the train station, because if somebody has an event the same time we're having a tournament that we've already scheduled 9 months prior, we could run into a parking problem over there. So I'd just like to point that out. San Jose's Horseshoe Club is going through a remodel, and they have been shut down. So we've now just recently rescheduled all of San Jose's tournaments at Half Moon Bay. So we're gonna have over 27 tournaments now at the courts at Half Moon Bay, which brings revenue to the city. But I just wanted to let you know that. And looking at schedule at your section C here, in section F, where you're planning to do the soccer fields, possibly that's being considered. What about putting the playground and all those facilities like pickleball and what have you on that walkway road, and scoot the soccer fields over to the right a little bit? And could you rearrange, where it says between B and C on that little pathway between the two fields? That might be an opportunity to build both. I would think you'd want your playground right across from where it says E. That would be a central spot for a playground for children, and all the parents from all the fields could have a pretty good, view of the playground and what's going on with their kids while the games are going on. So I'm just throwing that out also. Parking, again, we have a lot of seniors who show up that they might not be playing, but they're scorekeepers. So parking's definitely a situation with us. But I would really not, we wouldn't want to see our courts moved if you could help it. And very nice things you said about us. I don't know that we go hand in hand with Johnstone House, but
it's a perfect
I will tell you,
fit.
Pardon?
It's a perfect fit.
Well, I will tell you this, Bill, one of our members, his father was born in that house.
Oh my
gosh.
Come on. What else do you need? It's a perfect fit.
What we need is then we need ample parking so that if there were a scheduled event, if one of the historical Society of Half Moon Bay had an event that required over 50 cars, and it happened the same time we're having a tournament, that could be a difficult spot for everybody. So
that's a good point to make.
Yeah, and we're obligated to, like I say, put our schedule in 9 months early, and we get people from out of state. We had people from Illinois, we had people from Nevada come down. A lot of people will come from Northern California, and like they'll stay right at the hotel next to Cameron. So it's kind of a crazy situation. But
I hear you, but can't that get coordinated?
Well, I mean, it's also the case that to some extent it will be a problem at this field too, because you're going to have way more families at this situation, most likely. But it's worth thinking about.
Yeah, we have a large demographic. I mean, we actually have a world champion who's 11 years old, a girl. Wow. And we have people that in their 90s. So we're not going to complain about weather. I mean, if we have to walk, we have to walk because there's pride in staying in shape and all that. Logistically, to run a tournament, we have to bring a lot of equipment in. The further away we are, that's an inconvenience. We'll take that inconvenience over not being relocated and having to fight with everybody.
One thing, building on his comment, that I think that you could consider when you're designing this, and of course you could approach the soccer club again, but something that we talked about when we were doing all this field carving up for practices and games between AYSO and the soccer club was there were some fields that we used mainly for practicing, and then some fields we used in the game day slice ups. We would use specific fields only for the younger kid games. And so I noticed that you said that you would have a full field, full soccer field there. And it could be the case that that's really what makes the most sense. But one possible compromise, and that would also be less expensive, most likely, would be shrinking the soccer field such that it was like not the full size, but at least accommodated like maybe a practice area and then a half field size, which then can be used all the way up to, what is it? Oh gosh, my soccer mind is disappearing. You could find out, but it's probably like at least to U14, I want to say, maybe right around there. So that's a lot of age groups, and that's actually where I think that we probably have more youth, like younger kid teams, than we do older kid teams. Again, everything's weird because of COVID, so that's a possibility that would allow.
I would agree
in
with
talking with the soccer team. Sorry, guys. In talking with the soccer team, they did say that this would be great as a practice field, and it did not have to be full size. I will tell you though that the size of the synthetic turf is not based on the soccer; it's based on the softball. So we don't. The synthetic turf doesn't get smaller. It has to stay the size it is. I'm just showing that we could get a full size soccer field in there. How the soccer, clubs, how we decide to divvy it up if and when this gets built is like totally up to them. But they did say that practice fields would be like key.
Yeah, and I like what John said earlier about the MOUs with the schools, because we've been trying to go after the tennis courts from a different angle. We've got the Hatch Field for soccer, which is another one that I've been working with the school board to make sure that that's a synthetic field if and when that ever comes to be, for that.
Yeah, that was
piece
discussed as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So just,
Okay.
I mean, I agree that there's other options out there from the John perspective. What I'm currently saying, though, of course, is none of those things currently exist. We have no tennis court. We have no extra fields, I don't really care how we get them. I just want to get them.
I really am having a problem with why you wouldn't want to be part of like history.
Wait.
With the I would love the vision of it, that we have a whole bunch of horseshoe courts by the Johnston House where it fits
I do too.
The whole history of it.
We're just gonna have to move on. We have to move on.
And would elevate the whole idea of horseshoes.
Okay, listen. Could I just give two other points that weren't brought up? One is Adam's point about that 24-hour tennis court or what have you. You have to consider security just for what that's worth. But the trees right there in the parking lot, right across the street, right across the road there from the horseshoe pits, there's a tremendous amount of wildlife. And I would love all of you to just go check it out. There was a family of deer that live in those trees right there. We were seeing them last Thursday, and there's a ton of birds that live in those trees, and they're always going into the fields and all that. So, to be an advocate for those birds, regardless of what happens to us, there is a tremendous amount of wildlife that I'd like to see be protected. Again, regardless of what you do, your decision is on us.
Thank you.
I'd like you just to go see for yourselves.
Thank you for saying that.
No, I appreciate that. I spend quite a bit of time I know those fields very well. So, but I appreciate the insight.
Yeah, Adam. And so all of you, thank you so much for considering it. I just want you to know that to move us would be difficult for us. But, we got to, I guess, play the hand that's dealt us, right? But just to throw it out, if you don't move us, that would really be appreciated.
But wait a minute. The hand that might be dealt might be something that you end up loving.
Well, we've looked at that spot. And I could give you a lot of pros for it.
Okay.
But
I'm just curious. Were you on during the Johnston House presentation earlier in the evening?
Yes, I was.
Okay, cool. Good.
And I was also there. I will tell you this: when they first started the project, back in it had to be between 73 and 76, and I'm gonna guess about 74, 75, something like that. I was there when they brought the Wells Fargo stagecoach in, and they were talking about the project. I thought that was going to be a real cool project, and I'm glad to see that they're headway. No, I'm all in favor. I'm all in favor of saving history. I was a director with the Pacific Historical Society. I was part of the San Mateo Portola expedition that the path that they just did, and did the 200-year march over Sweeney Ridge and all the trails and all that. Or not Sweeney Ridge, I take that back. San Pedro Mountain. And so I value history tremendously. And so, it's sort of like, it's almost like tearing down Candlestick Park, okay?
No, I hear you.
It sounds
and going to Santa Clara.
Well, and the reason I asked that question is because it sounded like parking was a concern for you, and you heard maybe how few events actually are happening at the Johnston House, and you kind of got a sense that I couldn't imagine parking ever being a problem there.
Yeah, but they're not the only game in town. What about the historical?
Do you know how bitterly cold Candlestick Park was?
So, guys, I'm thinking that the city has said that. The city has said that they're definitely going to talk with the horseshoe community before moving forward with things.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, that was.
Yes, so there's lots of there's been great feedback tonight. There's lots more work to do.
Yeah. So it sounds like, we're going to have more opportunities, and no one is going to just be steamrolled over. The goal is to work with everyone. And so I'm just curious if it sounds like city, you guys have some great initial feedback. You've heard so much valuable feedback from the community. Do we have anything else that we need to add to this information for you to move forward?
Well, could I just say real fast that thank you. We don't want to compete with the Half Moon Bay Historical Society too, which is right there. And okay. So so it's not just the Johnstone House, it's Half Moon Bay Historical Society also.
Okay.
And thanks for your ear. I appreciate all of you and what you're doing.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you for your feedback and for participating.
Yeah, excellent feedback. Thank you.
Okay.
So then to answer your question, Chair, I think staff, we've gotten a lot of good information tonight. I think what we've learned is that the work that Melanie and her team did, which has been fantastic, they've been great to work with, has sparked a lot of creativity, a lot of thoughts. And this is normal. I mean, if those of you who are around, I guess at this point it was Pat and Commissioner Eisen, we went through the same thing with Carter Park, and what we landed on is not where we started. So Melanie will take all of this, and this is what she's good at, and we'll have another iteration of this. So I think we've gotten a lot of great feedback and really appreciate it. And this is exactly why we bring these things to this commission, because it just brings a much higher level of refinement by the time we get to the city council. Because this is what you're thinking about all the time. So really appreciate it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Thank you all for your input. I actually think we have great information to move forward with.
All right. Fantastic.
And I don't ever want to buy a car from Commissioner Eisen because she is a hard negotiator.
Right? I love it.
All right.
All right.
So it sounds
guys.
like we have one last item on our agenda. So it was something about a pool subcommittee, I think, and there was an acronym in it, and I'm no longer looking at the agenda. So can someone read it to me?
There was no acronym. It was a pool subcommittee or just liaison.
Oh, okay. I thought there was some word in there that I was.
Oh, ad hoc. Oh, sorry. So what ad hoc means is good moment for training. I'll try to keep it concise.
Thank you.
You are a Brown Act commission, which means the way you operate and the way you interact is legally governed by the Brown Act. That's why you guys can't have meetings outside of the public eye. That's why we have to notice meetings. Okay. There's a lot of restrictions that go with that. When we create a subcommittee, there's two types. There's a standing subcommittee and an ad hoc subcommittee. A standing subcommittee is for a purpose that's ongoing. So you'd say, we want to have a subcommittee for bikes and trails, and we want it to exist forever. And there'll always be two members of the commission on that subcommittee. Well, that's a standing subcommittee. It's also bound by the Brown Act. So anytime the two of those folks want to meet, we have to schedule a meeting, we have to notice it, we have to publish an agenda, we have to invite PCT, we have to go through all of that rigmarole because it's an ongoing discussion that the community needs to be involved in. Okay. An ad hoc subcommittee is a much simpler thing. It's for a single purpose, for a limited amount of time. And it's usually a good place to start to see if there's a reason to make it a longer term subcommittee. Okay. So the idea was in the last meeting, this group talked about creating some sort of a subcommittee, getting a couple of commissioners that keep working on the pool issue, working with the friends and thinking about this. And we figured the best way to start that is with an ad hoc subcommittee that could meet when they feel like it, when they want to, and then bring reports back to this commission. We'd probably just have it exist for the rest of this calendar year that this commission is sitting, and then we'd revisit it next year to see if it's something we want to institutionalize.
Yes. Okay. I remember all of that now, and I really appreciate the summary. So that's the topic. And so is the question, like, do we vote on whether or not we create a subcommittee, or does someone just need to volunteer to be the subcommittee and do they need to be approved?
Yeah, I think ultimately the commission has to approve it, but as an ad hoc subcommittee, it's a simpler process. If you get two people that raise their hands and that's it, then you just vote and make them the ad hoc subcommittee. If you have more than two, then we'd have to go through a process of voting and all that just to select the committee.
Okay.
And if you had less than two, then it would just
I thought we got this already last time.
Well, you volunteered some people, but they have to volunteer themselves.
No, I didn't say anything. I thought.
Can I volunteer them again?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Would we like to volunteer anyone to be an ad hoc subcommittee of the pool?
I think we were advocating for Hillary and Luis. Luis, you want a piece of this?
So I thought it was.
Uh-oh.
Is he saying no? I can't see him.
Luis, you want to be part of this
on
cool
mute.
thing?
Oh, sorry. I keep forgetting I'm on mute. It's loud in here. Say that again.
We're talking about a subcommittee for the pool, and we figure that's a perfect project for you and Hillary to work on.
So no set schedule. The two of you would coordinate. You'd meet occasionally. You'd work with the friends and just act as kind of the intermediary between this commission and the friends as they're working on this pool issue.
Yeah, that's fine. You up for it, Hillary?
Yep, I'm up for it.
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay.
So we just need a motion to create that subcommittee and appoint those two members in a second, and then we'll vote, and then we'll be good.
Do we have a motion?
I would like to volunteer Hillary. No.
Motion. You have to make the motion.
I would like to make a motion to have Hillary and Luis be the subcommittee ad hoc for the pool. I'm excited. This is going to be great.
Do we have a second?
And I second.
Okay.
All right.
Take it to a vote. Chair Stamper,
Yes.
Vice Chair Eisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Eisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Haru.
Yes.
It is done.
All right. Now we can adjourn. Right?
The subcommittees have been pretty impressive so far. So I have high expectations. I just want to let you know. I'm throwing it out there. I'm throwing it out there. It's on.
Well, we don't have volleyball courts yet. I like that this is being punctuated with basketball shots.
Sorry. that's my approval. Yes, we're doing it.
I'm definitely appreciating that. Okay.
All right.
So great. Then I think we can go, right, guys?
Go where?
We can adjourn.
Oh, we got to start the meeting now.
That's all that was on the agenda. Sounds good.
Oh, the only other item would be future items preview. Right. We don't have anything planned, but I do expect we'll probably bring back Smithfield at some point. And so what I would recommend is for April that we do just a commission discussion on the Johnston House. Our leads at the city on the negotiation of the MOU are Karen Decker and Corey Stalker from the city manager's office. We could have them join us. We could show the maps. We could have, maybe John would be able to attend, and we could talk about some of the other dynamics. And we could get some feedback from you as far as the MOU and where we're kind of been headed with it. So
as we still in that history, what I also want to know is the history of the dealings with the city. The initial agreement with the city.
There's no, that's an easy one. Never has been, never. This is
nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah.
This is the closest we've been.
This sounds fine to me.
No, there had to have been some kind of something when.
Paulette, how long have you been in Half Moon Bay? The history is handshakes and cigars, and that's it. I kid you not. There's nothing in writing.
Nothing in a newspaper clipping.
There might be some of that can help us understand the history, but there's nothing binding, nothing official, nothing in writing.
Right.
It's all been good old boy dealings up until the last few years.
We're creating it. No,
so Johnson House on the agenda sounds good to me.
Right.
Okay, so then we need the folklore version.
Okay. I'm not sure. Well, I think that's, you might have gotten that tonight.
Yeah.
We'll get that at the next meeting. It'll be perfect.
And then I just also want to say that as for future items, that we really are coming to the point where the ocean's going to be pulled back. So it'd be great if we could have a little update on, like, hopefully enough staff or hiring me for an hour to help, like, the staff.
You're not a planner. Sorry. No, we're making some progress. So I'll do an update on the beach volleyball courts next month as well.
Okay.
Hopefully we're done and it's like we're done, but
yeah.
A good update.
To get them up while it's volleyball season.
Yeah. I'm also curious to just get an update on, what is it, Magnolia Park?
If there's any updates, yeah.
Yeah.
We can probably do something. That's another one that so just for this commission to understand, the Community Development Department lost its main planner, has had another planner out on leave, and now they're losing their admin support. And we're rapidly trying to recruit and get people hired, but that takes time. And in the meantime, they've had to readjust some of their priorities just to stay legal with certain things. And so a lot of the really cool stuff we had been working on has had to been put on pause.
Understood. Understood.
It's tough.
Okay. I did not know that. That's good.
So, yes. So then
Done.
if you...
I'll ask for nothing else.
Let's adjourn.
Yes, exactly. I got it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night. Anything else?
Hillary Chair Stamper, you need to officially adjourn the meeting.
I'm officially adjourning the meeting. Everyone go home.
I'm happy to.
Sleep. Okay. Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.